Welcome to the Great Leadership Conference 2022. We are excited and glad to have you here. We know that you will be impacted and blessed as we learn from leadership experts who understand the complexity of today's global environment and are committed to help us navigate today's biggest challenges. This year's lineup includes great leaders like Dr. Sam Chan, Reverend Sam Adeyemi, Mr. Leke Older, Mrs. Audrey Jo Ezigbo, Mr. Benki Wellington, and the host, our very own Pastor Tola Ojutala.
It is who or what you follow that you become. When we look at your life or whoever you are following, if you don't like what you are seeing, it's time for you to follow somebody else.
People don't rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of their systems. How do you get people to commit themselves? It's a three-part process: heart, head, hands.
A winning strategy is a detailed plan for achieving success in a given situation. A winning strategy always has that. The goal has to be clear. If you don't know what you're looking for, you will not recognize it when you see it.
Because I am female, I find myself constantly struggling to prove that I have equal value as a human being, that I matter, that I am capable, that I am competent, that I'm deserving of respect, and I deserve the opportunity to give the world my best.
God already had that end result in mind before He created you. You can only find your calling in the mind of your Creator.
Now, there are two dimensions of Jesus Christ. There's a manifested dimension of Jesus Christ, and there's the unmanifested dimension of Jesus Christ. The manifested dimension of Jesus Christ is the man who walked the Sea of Galilee, healed the sick, opened blind eyes, fed the poor, and all that stuff.
Today, Dr. Sam Chan will be speaking on restructuring your leadership roles in ministry and the marketplace. Mr. Benki Wellington will be speaking on building structures for your dreams and visions. Pastor Tola will be speaking on structure and restructuring in life and ministry, and Reverend Sam Adeyemi will speak on creating and sustaining structures for success. This promises to be a life-changing experience. GLC 2022.
Too often, we drift from one action to another without thinking about the choices we have made. In fact, our direction seems normal that we don't even realize we have made a choice that has significant consequences. The book Line Crossers by Pastor Tola Odutola is a book that helps you find wisdom and courage you need to cross over the lines that challenges you. No matter your background, the message of this book will help you cross over your lines with strides of hope and confidence. To get a copy of this book, simply visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order and watch yourself cross over into your victory. It is easy to become complacent with life. The hurtful backgrounds, failed dreams, and scars from your past gives one's excuses for having no expectations in life. However, in the book, I Am Better Than This, Pastor Tola Odutola inspires readers to relentlessly pursue a better future despite the challenges that will surely arise. To get a copy of this life-transforming book, kindly visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order.
Today, leadership has proven to be the most influential and critical element of businesses and organizations. At every level of an organization, strong leadership skills are required to drive innovation, inspire performance, boost productivity, and collaborate within a diverse workforce. An effective leader possesses the necessary tools and skills to inspire and impact their teams, allowing the organization to run smoothly and cooperatively through conferences and seminars hosted in various cities around the world, including the Great Leadership Conference right here in Baltimore. Speakers and industry experts share insights on how to improve processes, develop systems, and lead the next generation. The Great Leadership Conference has featured prominent and world-renowned speakers such as Pastor Paul Adefarasin, Dr. Mensa Otabil, Pastor Agu Iruku, Dr. Tim Elmore, Dr. Sean Lovejoy, Pastor Cindy Trim, and Pastor Femi Atoyebi, amongst others. The Alpha Leadership Conference is the vision of Pastor Tola Ojutala. He is the senior pastor of Jesus House Baltimore.
Materials such as audio and video recordings of this conference can be purchased in the GLC website at www.greatleadership.net. A short survey will be available during the conference via a link that will be posted in the chat section of this live stream. Kindly complete this survey.
From one action to another without thinking about the choices we've made. In fact, our direction seems so fixed and normal that we don't even realize we've made a choice that has significant consequences. Flying Crosses by Pastor Tola Odutola is a book that helps you find the wisdom and courage you need to cross over the lines that challenges you. No matter your background, the message of this book will help you cross over your lines with strength, hope, and confidence. To get your copy of this book, you can simply visit alphaleadershipconference.net to place your order and watch yourself crossing over into your victory. No doubt, it is easy to become complacent with life. The hurtful backgrounds, failed dreams, and scars from the past seem like sufficient excuses for having low expectations in life. However, in this book, Pastor Tola Odutola inspires readers to relentlessly pursue a better future despite the challenges that will surely arise. To get your copy of this life-transforming book for just $9.99, you can simply visit alphaleadershipconference.net.
Welcome to the Great Leadership Conference 2022. We are excited and glad to have you here. We know that you will be impacted and blessed as we learn from leadership experts who understand the complexity of today's global environment and are committed to help us navigate today's biggest challenges. This year's lineup includes great leaders like Dr. Sam Chan, Reverend Sam Adeyemi, Mr. Leke Older, Mrs. Audrey Jo Ezigbo, Mr. Benki Wellington, and the host, our very own Pastor Tola Ojutala.
It is who or what you follow that you become. When we look at your life or whoever you are following, if you don't like what you are seeing, it's time for you to follow somebody else.
People don't rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of their systems. How do you get people to commit themselves? It's a three-part process: heart, head, hands.
A winning strategy is a detailed plan for achieving success in a given situation. A winning strategy always has that. The goal has to be clear. If you don't know what you're looking for, you will not recognize it when you see it.
Because I am female, I find myself constantly struggling to prove that I have equal value as a human being, that I matter, that I am capable, that I am competent, that I'm deserving of respect, and I deserve the opportunity to give the world my best.
God already had that end result in mind before He created you. You can only find your calling in the mind of your Creator.
Now, there are two dimensions of Jesus Christ. There's a manifested dimension of Jesus Christ. There's the unmanifested dimension of Jesus Christ. The manifested dimension of Jesus Christ is the man who walked the Sea of Galilee, healed the sick, opened blind eyes, fed the poor, and all that stuff.
Today, Dr. Sam Chan will be speaking on restructuring your leadership roles in ministry and the marketplace. Mr. Benke Wellington will be speaking on building structures for your dreams and visions. Pastor Tulla will be speaking on structure and restructuring in life and ministry. And Reverend Sam Adeyemi will speak on creating and sustaining structures for success. This promises to be a life-changing experience. GLC 2022.
Too often, we drift from one action to another without thinking about the choices we have made. In fact, our direction seems normal that we don't even realize we have made a choice that has significant consequences. The book Line Crossers by Pastor Tola Odutola is a book that helps you find wisdom and courage you need to cross over the lines that challenges you. No matter your background, the message of this book will help you cross over your lines with strides of hope and confidence. To get a copy of this book, simply visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order and watch yourself cross over into your victory. It is easy to become complacent with life. The hurtful backgrounds, failed dreams, and scars from your past gives one excuses for having no expectations in life. However, in the book, I Am Better Than This, Pastor Tola Odutola inspires readers to relentlessly pursue a better future despite the challenges that will surely arise. To get a copy of this life-transforming book, kindly visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order.
Today, leadership has proven to be the most influential and critical element of businesses and organizations. At every level of an organization, strong leadership skills are required to drive innovation, inspire performance, boost productivity, and collaborate within a diverse workforce. An effective leader possesses the necessary tools and skills to inspire and impact their teams, allowing the organization to run smoothly and cooperatively through conferences and seminars hosted in various cities around the world, including the Great Leadership Conference right here in Baltimore. Speakers and industry experts share insights on how to improve processes, develop systems, and lead the next generation. The Great Leadership Conference has featured prominent and world-renowned speakers such as Pastor Paul Adefarasin, Dr. Mensa Otabil, Pastor Agu Iruku, Dr. Tim Elmore, Dr. Sean Lovejoy, Pastor Cindy Trim, and Pastor Femi Atoyebi, amongst others. The Alpha Leadership Conference is the vision of Pastor Tola Odutola. He is the senior pastor of Jesus House Baltimore.
Conference materials such as audio and video recordings of this conference can be purchased in the GLC website at www.greatleadership.net. A short survey will be available during the conference via a link that will be posted in
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our viewers across the world. Welcome to the Great Leadership Conference 2022. My name is Jide Adebule, and I will be your host for this morning's session. The Great Leadership Conference has the mission to promote and teach leadership skills to all people around the world. Whether you're an entry-level associate, a junior level where you are in your organization, a mid-level manager, or even a senior executive, this conference would greatly impact you. The beauty of the Great Leadership Conference is also the fact that it provides a learning experience for that are applicable to your personal lives as parents, as singles, or even young adults. This year's conference is also designed to help small, medium, and large enterprise owners to bridge the gap between where they are and where they need to be. Over the years, we've been blessed with leadership experts from different parts of the world, and this year is no exception. We have acclaimed thought leaders, including Dr. Sam Chand, Dr. Sam Adeyemi, Mrs. Audrey Joe Ezigbo, Mr. Leke Alder, Mr. Banky Wellington, and the convener, Pastor Tola Odutola. They all will be sharing comprehensive insights on how to structure and restructure organizations, business and ministry environments, and even our personal lives. Now, here is a quick rundown of the Great Leadership Conference 2022. In a few minutes, we will begin the first session with a leadership expert, Dr. Sam Chand, and he would be speaking on restructuring your leadership roles in ministry and the marketplace. This session will be followed by Q&A from the audience. So I want to implore you to have your questions ready for the speaker. Kindly use any chat box of whatever platform you're using to join us right now. After the first session, there will be a 5 minutes break, and we would welcome our second speaker, Mr. Banky Wellington. He would be speaking on building structures for your dreams and visions. Today's evening session will begin at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 11 p.m. West African Time. Our first speaker for the evening session is a visionary leader and a highly sought after speaker, Pastor Tola Odutola. He would be speaking on structure and restructuring in life and ministry. At this point, I want to encourage you, kindly go ahead and share this link with your friends, your family members, colleagues, and have them join in as well. Our second speaker for the evening session is a prolific speaker, a strategist, and a leadership expert as well, and that's Dr. Sam Adeyemi. He would be speaking on creating and sustaining structures for success. The session would be followed by a Q&A session. Tomorrow morning would begin promptly at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 3 p.m. West African Time. Our first speaker tomorrow morning is a seasoned leader, and that is Mrs. Audrey Joe Ezigbo. She would be speaking on entrepreneurial structure and restructuring. Our second and final speaker for Saturday morning is a highly experienced leader and consultant, and that's Mr. Leke Alder. Mr. Alder would be speaking on building structure and restructuring your brand. I want to encourage you to lean in the next 2 days and ensure you do not miss any sessions of this conference. Once again, have your questions ready. Kindly put them up in the chat box of the platform you're using. And please go ahead to share this link right now so we can have as many people join in and be greatly impacted by this conference. Without further ado, please make welcome the convener of the Great Leadership Conference, Pastor Tola Odutola.
Thank you, Pastor Jide. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Sam Chand, good to see you again, my friend and my mentor. This morning, like Pastor Jide has said, we are in for a good time. For those who are joining us for the first time, I want you to know that this ride, you are going to enjoy it, and you are not going to be the same by the time all this is over. For those who are joining us for the first time, or probably you don't know much about the Alpha Leadership Conference, how did we come about GLC? The vision started about 25 years ago when I, as a young pastor, started pastoring Jesus House, Baltimore. And I didn't know my left from my right. I didn't know I needed leadership. All I knew, and I was told, is that I needed to be called. And I had no doubt about the calling. But then, since we're leading people, we have to have an understanding of how to get them to where we want them to be. So that was how it started. In the past 12 years, we have taken GLC to many nations of the world, and we have taken it to many cities. And I've gone around with Dr. Chan and some other, speakers, teaching leadership, challenging and encouraging people to come up. And today is not going to be an exception. I mean, today and tomorrow, by God's grace. This virtual experience started 3 years ago, and because of the COVID. And over the years, the past 3 years, we have seen an increase in the number of people that have been joining us. So wherever you are joining us from, I know there are people from Canada, people from UK, people from Nigeria, from Kenya, Ghana, and so many other nations of the world, people from Rwanda. I want you to know that this conference is packaged to help you, packaged to motivate and challenge you to be the best version of yourself or your organization. And this morning, like we had, our speaker is Dr. Sam Chand. We're going to be having his intro video in a minute. And after that, Dr. Sam Chand is going to come up. I want you to fasten your belts, because one thing about Dr. Sam Chand is that he makes things that look difficult, he makes them look very simple. And I've always asked myself, how does he do that? I'm still learning, and I say that when I grow up, I want to be like him. So please fasten your belts and take notes, because I'm telling you, this guy has a lot to offer. So please, can we take on the video of intro of Dr. Sam Chand?
Dr. Sam Chand is a former pastor, college president, and chancellor, but now serves as President Emeritus of Beulah Heights University. As a dream releaser, Dr. Sam Chand serves pastors, ministries, and businesses as a leadership architect and change strategist. He personally consults, mentors, and coaches some of the country's largest church pastors. He speaks regularly at leadership conferences, churches, corporations, leadership roundtables, ministers' conferences, seminars, and other leadership development opportunities. He was named in the top 30 Global Leadership Gurus list, and the singular vision for his life is to help others succeed. Dr. Sam Chand develops leaders through leadership consultations, leadership resources, and leadership speaking engagements. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to the Great Leadership Conference, Dr. Sam Chand.
Dr. Chand, go ahead, please.
What an honor and privilege to be with you here today, Pastor Tola. Thank you for the invitation. You are my dear friend, and your wife, Pastor Kofu, just wonderful people. I've had the privilege of traveling so many countries with you, doing the Alpha Leadership and the great leadership conferences. And thank you so much for once more inviting me to be part of this great journey. I am totally amazed and impressed by the lineup of speakers that you have who will be coming and sharing. And these are not the speakers, these are practitioners who actually put into practice what they are going to share with you today. And then I am also so grateful for the Lord and his favor and grace on your life, Pastor Tola, to have leaders from all over the globe, literally, who are
going to be part of this conference. Some of them are going to be part of this conference live. Some of them are going to be part of this conference on demand as the recording goes back out to them. But you have a global impact and a global footprint, and God has placed you as a steward of leadership all over the world. I have seen again and again how people look up to you, how people admire you, how people honor and respect you, how people glean from you. And I've also seen you, how deeply you have cared for people. Pastor Tola, I've been in rooms with you, not on the platform, just on the platform, but in private rooms where there were pastors in the room. And I saw you, how you have put your arm around them, how you have encouraged them, how you've spoken to their lives, how you have prayed over them, how you have walked difficult journeys with pastors and leaders in ministry and marketplace all over the world. And for that, we all are grateful for you, your life, your legacy, and the living inspiration that you bring to each one of us. My theme for today and my topic for today is restructuring your leadership roles in ministry and marketplace. So because I know the kind of leaders that will be on this call from all over the world, ministry and marketplace, what I want to do is not just give you information, but I want to frame what I'm going to share with you in a very specific way. And my framing is that I want to start conversations with you and your leadership. So the way I prepared my teaching and my notes are, I'm going to give you 3 things about this, 5 things about this, 7 things about that, 6 things about this, 2 things about this. I'm going to give you lists. And the reason I'm giving you lists is so that you can take the conversation, and after this call is over, after GLC 2022 has concluded, that you will be able to take this with your leadership teams, and you could be in any country. These are cross-cultural things I'm going to talk about, and you can help your team to restructure your leadership roles in ministry and marketplace. Now, I have friends who have fixed equipment, who have remodeled their houses simply by watching how-to videos on YouTube. You can fix anything. You can get a tutorial information on anything from YouTube nowadays. However, restructuring your leadership roles in ministry and marketplace is not a YouTube job. I do not recommend that for you, because restructuring, R-E, restructuring clearly implies that at one time there was a structure. The word re almost means again, repair, regain, repent, restructure, redo. So re means there's an assumption that there was a structure already in place. I also know that remodeling, rebuilding, restructuring is messy work. A few years ago, my wife had this idea that we need to restructure, remodel, redo our kitchens and our bathrooms, just half the house to be redone. And I remember how messy it was, how we had to relocate from where we were living, our master bedroom area, to go to another part of the house. And it was 6+ months of people coming in and out. And what they had to do, first of all, was to tear down what existed. Now, hear me now. This is the most important part of restructuring. Restructuring does not mean you already have this and you come behind it and paste on and add on something. Now, that's not what it's about. What it is about is that you have to tear down. Number 2, you have to clean out. Number 3, you have to have a new blueprint. You got to have new materials to rebuild and restructure its place. Let me go over those steps will be very carefully. You have to tear down. You got to clean out. You got to get a new blueprint. You got to have new materials. And then you're going to rebuild on top of that. So I'm sure that every speaker coming behind me is going to talk about different aspects of what that really means. So let me start with my list. Two foundational understandings. Number one, all restructuring is a critique of the past. All restructuring is a critique of the past. So that means if you restructure your church building, it means that you are improving whatever there was. It is a critique of the past. You are improving on the past. Number two, all restructuring will be offensive to someone on a very personal level. Please know this. So let me stop right here. And I appreciate the team. You can leave the screen up there if you want to. So as I talk through that, the team for Pastor Tola, you have an amazing team who have put this thing together, and I want to applaud them for the details that they worked through. So the first point is all restructuring critique of the past. But most people, most of you will not restructure for the second reason. You will not restructure for the second reason because it will be offensive to someone on a very personal level. There it is again. Thank you. Thank you so much. Leave that up there for a moment as I talk about the number two. All restructuring will be offensive to someone on a very personal level. And this number two reason is why most of you are going to be hesitant, apprehensive, and reluctant about restructuring. Because when you restructure, you're going to offend somebody. When you restructure, you're going to reposition somebody. When you restructure, you're going to remove somebody. When you restructure, you're going to promote somebody. When you restructure, you will demote somebody. When you restructure, you will fire somebody. When you restructure, you'll move somebody's program out of the way. When you restructure, you're going to bring somebody else in there. And whenever you do that, please know you're not talking to a synthetic entity that is intangible. You're talking to human beings. And this number two reason is the most important reason most of you are going to struggle with restructuring. So I thought I'd start with giving you your greatest hesitancy. It's not going to be a thing. It's going to be a person or persons. You restructure your church, some people are going to get angry and leave. You restructure your business, you might lose some customers before you gain some customers. So those are the two foundational understandings. Let me go to my next list. So there are 5 restructuring items of focus. 5 restructuring items in focus. And if the great GLC team can put those up there on the screen, that'll be very, very helpful to everybody who's watching me and taking notes. 5 restructuring items of focus. Number one is personal. Personal is how you are thinking as a leader. The next screen, please. How you are thinking as a leader. There we go. Thank you so very, very much. And leave that up there. Leave the screen up there. I'd much rather people look at that than look at me because you can still see and hear me. Personal. How you as a leader are thinking about this. Your excitement, circle the word and, your fears. So no restructuring will happen. Or let me say it another way. All restructuring happens with your thinking. And as you start thinking about it, you're going to get excited at one end because you're going to see possibilities. And you're going to get fearful at the other hand because you're going to see liabilities. So they're going to see possibilities and pitfalls. Number 2, personnel. Those who work for you with pay. How are you going to focus on those who are working for you. Now, I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. But the people pieces are the most important pieces, because proper people placement prevents problems. Let me give that to you again. Proper people placement prevents problems. Let's say that together. Everyone together. 1, 2, 3. Proper people placement prevents problems. Because we know two things. Number one, all your problems, whatever you're having, can be traced to a person or persons. And all your solutions are also a person or persons. So number one was personal. Number two is personnel. Number three is processes, how you do things. So this is very important, especially on the other side of the global challenges we have come through all over the world. Global challenges were not just the pandemic, but they were economic, they were social, they were cultural, they were religious, they were political. They are now coming out into recessions and even some great inflation all over the world. People's buying power has shrunk greatly. So how you do things, because if pastors are wanting to do church how it used to be, that's going to be very difficult. How you did business, that's going to be something that will be part of our restructuring conversation in just a few minutes. Your processes, how you do things. Number 4 is places. Locations on your org chart. Now that's very important. So every one of you, if I was to come to an organization and ask you for your org chart, you'd show me boxes. You might be at the top, or you might be the number 2 as the executive, and then there are boxes, and then the boxes under that as well. You have to rethink the boxes themselves before you rethink the people who are in the boxes. Because what I have discovered, now I'm a leadership consultant, I have clients on every continent except Antarctica. I've got clients everywhere. And I can tell you that one of the things we have discovered is there have been new boxes added to your org chart. There have been boxes that have moved up and down and sideways on your org chart. And even more importantly, there are some boxes on your org chart that are not needed anymore. And that, my dear friends, is going to be your bigger challenge than adding boxes, than moving boxes. The boxes that need to be removed from your org chart will cause you more existential angst. It's going to cause you more problems. It's going to cause you more internal fears and apprehensions, hesitancy, and disappointments than anything else. Places. Number 5 is people. People. All who are affected by the outcomes, volunteers, family, members of your church, customers, etc. All who are affected by your ecosystem. So it's not just the people that you pastor. It's not just the customers that you serve. It's not just the vendors that you help. It's not just your economic social bubble. There are lots of people who are affected by how you restructure. So when you restructure something, it's not just for you. You've got to think about the domino effect of what it is going to happen. We call those transitional issues in people's lives. So before I give you the 6 questions to ask yourself, let me review this. 5 restructuring items of focus. Personal, how are you thinking? Personnel, those who are working for you. Processes, how you do things. Places, the location on your org chart. And remember under that, removing a box, demoting a box is going to be your biggest challenge in restructuring. And number 5, the people who are affected by the outcomes. Let me move from there to 6 questions to ask yourself. Now, all of this is about restructuring. 6 questions to ask yourself. Question number 1, what is working? What is working? Let me go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to come back to number 1. What is working? Question number 2, who is still effective? Question number 3, what is not working? And question number 4, who is no longer effective? Let's talk about those 4. What is working? Now, the reason I want you to think about what is working as opposed to question number 3, what is not working, is that everybody knows what is not working. In fact, every staff meeting you have, every business meeting you have, every board meeting you have, every directors meeting you have, every kind of team meeting you have, you talk about what is not working. And you talk about who is no longer effective. You talk about those 2 every meeting. But very few organizations have I found who are willing to talk about 1 and 2. When was the last time? When was the last time your executive team, your board, your directors, your department leaders, your vice presidents, however you're organized, because I'm talking to ministry and marketplace people, when was the last time you devoted an entire meeting to what is working? What are we successful at? What is producing great results? What is bringing us the greatest ROI, return on investment? Where are we being the best? From a scale of 0 to 100, we are a consistent, 0 to 10. We are a consistent 9, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. Where are we doing? Where are we winning? Where are we dominating? And who is still effective? That goes along with the first question. When was the last time you met in a room and didn't talk about what's not happening, didn't talk about what's not working, didn't talk about who is not working, did not talk about what went wrong, but you talked about what went right? What is working? What is still effective and who is still effective? And then you can go to number 3 and 4. But see, number 3 and 4, you talk about constantly. Number 3 and 4, you think about constantly. Number 3 and 4, you plan about constantly. Number 3 and 4 might be the reasons you are on this call. But before you get to number 3 and 4, what is not working, who is no longer effective, focus your time on what is working, who is still effective. Now, if I could put brackets and parentheses around these 4 things I've talked to you so far about, what is working, who is still effective, are what are called assets. These are our assets. These are our competitive advantages. 3 and 4 are liabilities, things that are not working out, people that are not working out. Now, because in restructuring, we have already focused on our liabilities, what is not working out, I wanted to actually start with your assets. What and who is working? Because you cannot restructure till you have itemized your assets. Assets, liabilities. That's basic business, is it not? These are my assets. These are my liabilities. This is my income. This is my outgo. This is my things I can expect to gain, and here are my losses. But most of us start with our losses rather than starting with our gains. And I want to encourage you to start thinking about your assets versus your liabilities. Question number 5, is my present system, I'm going to come back to the word system, in need of reorganizing. So what is the system? If I was to draw out an organizational chart, if you had your boxes, you know how we do boxes everywhere. If you had an organizational chart, the boxes without any names in it, the boxes without any names in it is called a system. That's important. So let me go ahead and define structure and come back to number 5, because I've got more to say on number 5. Boxes without names in it. So it could be finances, marketing, ministry, youth, IT, whatever those boxes are your boxes without any names in it. Is a system. When you put names in those boxes, it becomes a structure. Now, the reason I'm differentiating that is that most of our conversation is on the names in the boxes. So-and-so is not working out. So-and-so is not doing right. Rather than the box itself and its own positioning. So under the system, I want to give you 5 questions to assist you in creating systems. 5 questions to ask yourself, and here we go. Hey, Pastor Tola, you have an amazing team. Look at them. They're putting it up there. My notes are right there for everybody. After this call is over, you can send the notes out. You can sell the notes. I don't know, whatever you want to do. You can write books on these notes. Just put me a little credit over there. 5 questions to assist in creating system. Number 1, what defines us? What defines us? That answers the question, who are we? What defines us? What defines you? So I am defined in many different ways. People I work with call me a dream releaser. They have a dream. I come by next to them and help them release that dream. For example, Pastor Tola, who's the convener, organizer, and the head of GLC and Alpha Leadership, he has a dream to resource leaders worldwide. He has a dream to be a resource person to ministry in marketplace. He has a dream to help people go to the next level. And the reason I'm on this call is because I'm a dream releaser. I help him. It's not my dream, even though it is, but this is his dream. This call is his call. I'm here to help him. So what defines us? What defines you? Number 2, what are your deliverables? What are your deliverables? What is it that you deliver? Do you have a service? Do you have an actual product? Do you sell your time? What is it that you are actually delivering to your people? What is your deliverable? You got to be very, very clear about that. If I was to come to your church service, what is it that you are delivering to me? What is it that if I was to come to your business, can I, as your customer, tell you, the provider, what your deliverables are? Number 3, what are your delivery systems? Now, we found out in the pandemic very quickly that your delivery systems immediately, overnight, pivoted to the camera. Half the world had not heard about Zoom, but now everybody is Zooming because Zoom became a verb. A noun became a verb. It became a doing thing. People were Facebook Live. I have so many pastor friends who had no idea what Facebook Live was, who didn't know what Zoom was. Your delivery systems. Before Zoom became what it was, remember there was a thing called Skype? But somehow the delivery system, there was a battle between the delivery system. And then we started finding out that there was a time early on during the pandemic that people used to watch us on online, live. So you announce your church service, we will be live at 10 o'clock. And people, wherever they were at, in their homes, in the bedroom, in their kitchens, in their living room, in the drawing room, they went online and watched you live. And then we started seeing the shift that people, not as many people watching it live. Now people start watching it on demand. So all of a sudden, YouTube came up. I'm just giving you some examples to think, what are your delivery systems? How do you deliver your services? How do you deliver your product? I used to travel. Pastor Tola will tell you, I used to travel about 200 flights a year all over the world. 200 flights a year all over the world. And then I had slowdown plans, and they all failed. Every slowdown plan I had failed. Then God gave me a stop it plan. And this year, I will travel 20 flights, 200 flights to 20 flights. But my business has increased 47%. You know why? Because we discovered delivery systems. I can talk to people globally like this, rather than having to travel, get picked up, go to a hotel, go to a conference room, back to the hotel, back to the airport. Instead of doing all of that, here I am, just talking to you and talking to people all over the world. What's your delivery system? Number 4, you'll see me coming back to number 4 in different ways again and again. Number 4, who are our drivers? These are the people who make it happen for you. These are people who, for example, I've already said this, but bears repeating. Pastor Tola put together an A+ team to organize this call that we are on right now. My office has received multiple emails. Last week, we got on a trial run. So I'm talking to you because last week, the entire team, Pastor Tola's team, met with me online. The drivers are making it happen. Now, Pastor Tola can be as brilliant as he wants to be, and I can be as prepared as I want to be. But if the drivers are not driving to make this happen, putting the screens up, following along with me, and doing everything that they do, it wouldn't happen. It's always about the people. And number 5, aligning our dollars. I didn't say, do you have enough dollars? I think aligning our dollars. So if there's alignment between your dream and alignment between your resources, there's alignment between your vision and alignment between your resources, you'll be good. You know, the Bible says, without a vision, people perish. Can I add to that? Without being sacrilegious, without resources, without money, there is no vision. But when you have a vision and start aligning your resources to that, you start creating systems that are equitable to the location you're in. So before I move on from here, I have a big question, really big question for all of you leaders right now, because my assumption is that many of you are seasoned leaders in ministry and marketplace, church, corporate, sacred, secular. And here's my question for you. Knowing what you know now, with all of your curated wisdom, with all of your years of experience, if you could re-systematize your organization, if you could get a whiteboard and remove all the boxes, and start redrawing the boxes, how would you organize yourself? How would you organize yourself? With all the wisdom you have now, with all the excitement you have now, with all the fears you have, with all the disappointment, with all the joys, with all the fulfillment, with all the heartache, with all the people experience, with all the system experience, with all the administrative experience, if you could reorganize a whiteboard, move all the boxes, and start rebuilding your organization, what would that look like? Because you see, before you restructure, you must re-systematize. Because structure, remember, are the people in the boxes. Systems are the boxes themselves. Do you actually need that box anymore? Do you need a new box? Do you need this box to move up? Do you need this box to move down? Do you need this box to report into this box now? Because till you have that system in place, So I'm sitting inside a studio right now. At one time, wherever I'm sitting, there used to be shrubbery and plants and trees and forest and woods. Nothing was developed here. But some developer came by this piece of land years ago and said, wonder what we like if we built ABC, the system. Wonder what this box will look like, and this box will look like, and this box will look like, before they started putting Sam Chand in that room, before they put this chair in this room, before they put this wall in this room, before they painted the walls in this room, before they put a desk in front of me, before they gave me all this, there had to be a system. So here's my question. Is my present structure in need of organizing? So structure is people. And you ask three questions. Question number one, who to retain? Question number two, who to release? And question number three, who to reassign with retraining? Who to retain, who to release, who to reassign with retraining. Just a few thoughts about that. What I have done, so I've been a youth pastor, I've been a senior pastor, I've been a university president, and now I'm a consultant to corporations and to churches all over the world. And I ask people if they would indulge me in their restructuring by making a list of all the people, paid and volunteers, and ask three simple questions behind each name. So let me use myself. My name is Sam Chand. Should we retain Sam Chand? Should we release Sam Chand? Should we reassign Sam Chand and retrain him for his new assignment? What do we do with Sam Chand? Now, in the United States of America is where I'm located. I live in Atlanta. In the United States of America, I encourage leaders in ministry and marketplace to ask this question in November. First part of November. Why first part of November? Because if you're going to retain me, that tells me I need to get ready for January. If you're going to release me, you can release me in November. And if you want to be generous and gracious with me for my service, you can release me in November and pay me through the end of the year. So that gives me, as an employee, as a team member, that gives me about 6 weeks or so to get another job. I can go through my holiday season with pay, and I will know ahead of time. And if somebody is going to get upset and leave, they can leave during these 2 months. Reassignment is important because now you can retrain me during those 6-8 weeks. Because when you start January, unfortunately, most leaders try to reorganize, restructure in January. No, no, no. In January, you should be ready to go, ready to run the race. January 1st, bam, you should be ready to go. Do all of your restructuring. Remember, I started by saying all of your tearing down, all of your cleanup, all of your repurposing, all the new material, all the new people. Do that in the last 2 months of the year so you can start the year with a bang. Unfortunately, I just don't understand it. Unfortunately, leaders all over the world make the same mistake. They say we're going to start the new year, but they start the new year limping because they will start making restructures and reorgs in January. That means they have to clean up through February and March, and you already lost the best years, the best months of the year. So how would you reorganize? I have a question for you. Imagine for a moment that you're going to leave where you're at leave your location. You're going to leave Baltimore. You're going to leave Houston. You're going to leave Seattle. You're going to leave Lagos. You're going to leave Nairobi. You're going to leave Harare. You're going to leave Johannesburg, wherever you're at. Sydney, Auckland, Delhi, Calcutta. You're going to leave wherever you're at right now. And you're going to relocate your business. You're going to relocate your church, your entire family, 1,000 miles away. Or 10,000 miles away, however, but you're going to just totally leave where you're at and go somewhere else. And if you could choose 5 people in your church or 5 people in your corporation, your company to take with you, not counting family members, not counting family members. If you could take only 5 people with you to restart that company, to restart that church, to relaunch your business, to relaunch another church 1,000 miles away from where you're at, who are the 5 people you take with you? Who are the 5 people you would take with you? Now, I know some of you are saying, well, if I have a church, I'll need somebody to do administration, somebody to do finances. I'll need somebody to do worship. I will need youth, whatever it might be. Or in business, you're going to say, I'm going to have to take somebody as a CEO, COO, CFO. I'll need somebody for marketing, somebody for IT. Don't think like that, because that is structure. If you can think of systems and people who have your culture, who have your DNA, who are loyal to you, who get it, who can make it happen, who are those 5 people you would take with you? The 5 people you would take with you. Most people have a hard time coming up with 5. But I've saved a harder question for you behind that. The harder question is, if there are people on your team right now who you would not take with you to relaunch, start over somewhere else, why are they on your team now? Let me ask that again, because that question is meant to explore what you are thinking about restructuring. If there are people on your team right now that you would not take with you to that new location, why do you still have them with you right now? Now that, my dear friends, if you can answer that question with brutal honesty, you will make a major shift towards restructuring. So what are the 5 questions to streamline your organization? We talk about restructuring. What are the 5 questions to ask as you streamline your organization? Question number 1, what to start? What to start? This is an amazing time to start something. I love what Pastor Tola is doing right now. He's gone global. He's expanded Alpha into GLC. He has brought on people from ministry and marketplace. He created a team. He didn't get in a hurry. He has taken his time. This thing has been planned for months and months. People have been working on the technology, on the media, on the promotion, on the administrative side of things. People like me have been given a very clear direction as to what we need to do, what we don't need to do, when to show up, what to do, how the question be answered. I mean, a lot has gone into this. You have an opportunity to start something. More things have started. More people have moved up the ladder during these difficult times because they are willing to start something. Now, let me tell you who makes money in our world. So I'm going to talk to all the corporate leaders just for a moment. The people who make money in the world are people who solve problems. Everything you will buy today, everything you ever bought in your life was a problem that was solved. I'm sitting in a chair. At one time, people used to sit on tree stumps. It's a problem solved. I got lights in this room. There used to be darkness at one time. That's a problem solved. I'm doing a Zoom with you and other platforms it's going out on. It's a problem solved. I'm wearing a shirt. At one time, I didn't have clothes. Years ago, it's a problem solved. I have a pen in my hand. This is a problem solved. If you want to make money, you have to remind yourself, every problem gets monetized. I have a friend who's in the printing business. He told me in 2021, in May of 2021, he said, Sam, I have made more money in the first 6 months of 2021 than I would have made in 2 years. You know what he was doing? He was printing signs. Signs that said 6 feet apart. Signs which said masks required. Signs which said vaccination this way. Signs that said different signage that was needed during the pandemic. There was a problem, he monetized it. What to start? Question number 2 is a harder one, definitely a harder one. What to stop? So this is what I would do if I was you as a leader. I would get my team together and ask them only question number 1. So there are 5 questions. Don't go through all 5 of them in one meeting because they are different poles. They're totally different sides of the same continuum. So I'd get my team together and ask them one simple question. What should we start? And don't make decisions. This is a no decision meeting. What should we start? And get a whiteboard and just list on there. You can have people explain what they mean by that. You can dig further into that. You can get clarification on that. But just ask people what to start. Get ideas. You know how you get great ideas? You get great ideas because you have a lot of good ideas. What to start? Second question, that's in a group. Second question has to be asked individually. Because if you get 10 people in a room and you ask them what to stop, even though everybody, 9 of the 10 will know what needs to be stopped, because the 10th person is what needs to be stopped. The 10th department is what needs to be stopped. They're not going to say that in front of that person. So those are individual meetings. You would meet with each one and ask them one simple question. In this organization, in this church, in this corporation, if we could stop one thing, what would that be? Now, what does stopping do? It redirects resources, redirects focus, redirects energies, redirects personnel, redirects money, redirects attention, redirects everything. Because when you stop doing this, all of a sudden you have resources that were going here. Now, the reason you need to do that is because I have noticed in organizations that unfortunately our best resources go to things that are not working. Isn't it incredible the kind of things that we do? We send our best people to the departments that are not working. We send the most money to the departments that are not working. We talk most in our meetings about departments that are not working. We give more focus and attention to what is not working. It doesn't make sense to me. So as a leadership consultant, as an organizational strategist, I want to say to you, stop putting your best people and your best resources into areas that are non-productive, but that will only happen if you ask question number 2, what to stop. Number 3, what to sustain. That means here are things we're going to continue doing. We will continue to, we will sustain these 5 things. What are things that we are going to sustain? Number 4, what to suspend. Now, suspend is very important. Suspend means that I'm going to take what I need to make a decision on and delay the decision, defer the decision, not deny, delay the decision. So right now, we are sitting in the month of September, or 2022. And there are some things that if you're not careful, you're going to talk about it every week, every month. But there are decisions that you can say, this is a decision we will make. This is a decision we need to make, but we will make it in January of 2023. Now, what does that do? It clears up space. It gives you margin. You can redirect resources. You don't have to keep talking about it again and again. You suspend a decision, not deny it, only defer it for another time. Number 5, what to speed? What to speed? Every organization is doing 2, maybe 3 things that are bringing it the highest returns. Every corporation is selling 2 or 3 things that are bringing them the highest returns. Every church is doing 2 or 3 things that is bringing it the greatest amount of encouragement, members, resources. What are those 2 or 3 things, and how can you get behind them and speed those things? So, before I move on to 6 strategic leadership skills that you need to restructure, let me give you the 5 questions one more time. What to start, what to stop, what to sustain, what to suspend, and what to speed. Let's go to 6 strategic leadership skills needed during restructuring. 6 strategic leadership skills needed during restructuring. Number 1, anticipation. Anticipation simply says what lies ahead by keeping your eyes on your members, your customers, bottom up, not bottom down. That means you got to keep your eyes on where your members and customers are. Good. And get input from the grassroots. I want to ask you a question. If you were digging holes, if you were digging trenches, if you were digging with shovels in my previous life back in 1973, 74, 75, here in the United States of America, I have done jobs in which all day long I would dig trenches, dig holes, dig foundations for buildings. I dug with a shovel. And if you were a company that made shovels, here's my question. If you wanted the best ideas to improve the shovel, who would you go to? Would you go to the engineer who's got amazing software on how to improve a shovel in the engineering department on the 18th floor of the high rise on your campus? Or would you come to Sam and say, Sam, you use a shovel every day, 8 hours, 10 hours a day. Look at your hands. You've got blisters and calluses on your hands. Look at your shovel. It is so well used. You use it every day. You use it to make a living. Sam, if you could redesign the shovel to make your job easier, how would you restructure this shovel? But you know what we don't do? We don't ask the hole digger. We don't ask the volunteer. We don't ask the salesperson. We don't ask our receptionist, our secretary. We don't ask the department leaders. We don't ask the average church member. How can we improve? Because what happens is we go to the department, we go to the executive level, and we assume that people here need this and people here want this, but we never ask the people themselves. Anticipation, what lies ahead by keeping your eyes out there. Navigation, number 2. Restructuring is not a once-a-year item. It's ongoing as needed. Don't wait till the end of the year. Restructure when you need to. Because the longer you wait to restructure, the greater your losses. So restructure as needed. It is not just a once a So, you know, there are people who have their companies, the churches, and they go away to a retreat or some other place, and they come up with these restructuring. I think that is great. That's wonderful. Please do more of that. However, do not relegate restructuring to a calendar time on your calendar. Restructure as needed. So earlier on, I said to you, November, so you can be ready. Now that is something that you can count on. But if you needed to restructure in April or May, do it in April and May as well as in November. So November is on the list, but do it as needed. Number 3, communication. Communication. During restructuring, over-communicate. Over-communicating during restructuring is necessary. The other day, my wife and I were traveling through North Carolina in a car, and there was a major highway construction and major traffic backed up. And I mean, it was just really bad. It was obvious it's still going to be years before they're going to be able to complete their construction. And I said to my wife, her name is Brenda. I said to Brenda, I wonder what it'd be like if the Department of Transportation created a 5-minute or less video saying, we will be restructuring this highway. And to restructure the highway is going to take us 3 years, 5 years, whatever. But here are the steps into building a highway. We'll have to tear out the old. We'll have to bring in new dirt. We'll have to lay down rebar or wires down. We'll have to put concrete in there. We'll have to do this. We'll have to do piping in there. We'll have to run this in there. We'll have to do this. There'll be 5 layers of it. And it's going to be, we got to put lighting in there. I mean, just tell me step by step, communicate with me what is going on. Because if you don't, there'll be people like me who are traveling the highway saying, wow, what a mess, what a mess, what a mess. When are they going to finish with this? It's been years. Wonder what they're doing. I don't see anybody working here. They never do anything. Boy, there's going to be another 20 years. Instead of me as a customer, instead of me as a church member, instead of me as your client, instead of me as a customer having to wonder what's going on, over communicate during times of restructure. Because if you don't over communicate, let me tell you, they're going to come up with their own narrative. So whoever controls the narrative and the timeline is in control. Let me say that again. That's gold right there. Whoever controls the narrative and the timeline is in control. So if you, as a leader, want to lead, you've got to control the narrative, over communicating, and the timeline. Number 4, listening. And you will see my notes right there. Listening, especially to what you don't want to hear during times of reset. Listening to what you don't want to hear. Oh, I know you're saying, Sam, you should have never said that. But I'm saying it. Because what we want is people to say, good job. That's going to be so good. Oh, I'm so excited about it. Can't wait. That is great and wonderful, but that's not the helpful thing during restructuring. During restructuring, you got to be willing to listen. Willing to listen to those things you don't want to hear. Number 5, learning. Quick and constant learning. Mentally, people, change, tactical, strategic. Keep learning. Learn quick, learn fast, learn so that no one will ever blame you for not keeping up with all the progress that has gone on. And number 6 is leading. 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 This is what we call deep seed, the what and the why. Number 6 is leading. Leading. Now, in leadership, you've got to do 2 things. They are strategic. Everything else is tactical. Let me explain that to you. Leading is when you deep seed only two things: what and why. What and why. What are we restructuring and why are we restructuring? Please get this. Please get this. Because if you're not careful, you will run towards the tactical. And the tactical is who, when, where, how much, how often, with who, evaluation, assessment. Those are all good questions, but they are secondary questions. I call them tactical questions. There are only two strategic questions. So as a leader, because all of you who are listening to me right now are leaders at some level in your organization, you as a leader have to be clear about the what and the why when you are restructuring. So before I go to my conclusion, I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to give every one of you all over the world a leadership journal called Avail. I published the journal. It is 5-color, glossy, Christian leadership for ministry and marketplace. I'm going to give you a website in just a moment. You can go to that, get the first year free. If you live in the United States of America, you can get this in your mailbox. Everyone in your church, if you want to, can get this in your mailbox. Everyone in your leadership can get your mailbox. There's a QR code on screen on there. If you want to go to a website, it is theartofleadership.com, or you can just take a picture of the QR code. Yeah, I see you doing that. I see you doing that. Wow, so many of you are doing that right now. Go into the QR code and it'll take you right to theartofleadership.com. If you are in another country that does not receive mail from the United States, you can receive this in your iPad, on your computer, on your telephone as a digital copy of Leadership Journal. I would love for thousands of you all over the world to get this next year's free. It is a quarterly leadership journal simply called Avail. And it's all about structure, restructure, resystematization, and articles from thought leaders, practical leaders, corporate leaders, church leaders, and you can just take a picture of that on your screen. And I'm hoping that thousands of you will start receiving this. That's my free gift to you for Pastor Tola. He's always saying, what resources can you bring to the conference? So I'm not selling anything. I'm just giving away free. With that in mind, I'm going to give you 4 items of focus during restructuring. 4 items of focus during restructuring. Number 1, courage for restructuring. Number 2, stamina during restructuring. Number 3, sustainability of the organization. And number 4, scalability of the organization. Let me speak a little bit on each one of them, and then I will throw it back to the team for any questions or answers that might be. Number 1, courage. Please hear me on this. It'll take every ounce of courage you have to restructure. Restructuring is difficult. If restructuring was easy, we wouldn't be having this conference on restructuring. If Pastor Tola could have said, restructuring is easy, everybody can restructure, he would have never organized this conference around that theme of restructuring. The reason Pastor Tola has organized this conference around restructuring, the reason he's put time, attention, focus, resources, money, team behind restructuring is because he knows how difficult it is, and the difficulty comes from the courage that is needed as a leader to make restructuring possible. I can tell you from my life, that's why I wrote the book, Leadership Pain. Leadership Pain has become a bestseller globally. I've written 27 books, and Leadership Pain has become the best seller of any of the 27 books I've written. Why? Because there's pain in leadership, and you will experience major pain in restructuring. Now, why am I saying that to you? Because reality is your best friend. But you also need to know that if you're going to be a leader, you cannot be a leader without courage. Number 2 is stamina. stamina during restructuring. Restructuring is not an overnight thing. Restructuring is not just few of you making a decision, announcing it, and that's it. Restructuring will take stamina from you. It is not a sprint, it is a marathon. Restructuring needs internal stamina, emotional stamina, relational stamina, resources stamina, financial stamina, organizational stamina. It's going to take stamina on your part. Sustainability of the organization. That means I'm restructuring so that my organization goes on. And then number 4, scalability, that it can grow. You remember the words of Jesus when he says to his disciples, go forth and bring forth fruit, number 1. Number 2, that your fruit should remain. Bringing forth fruit is scalability, growing. That your fruit should remain is sustainability. So you're restructuring because you want your organization to continue, to last, to be sustainable, to be your legacy. And you're also growing your organization, restructuring your organization to grow, sustain, and scale, to live long and to scale and to grow. I have given you all kinds of lists today. And the purpose of my giving you those lists was so that you can have resources to take those lists, put your own context inside of it or around it, package it how you need to, and ask those questions, lead those thoughts to your organization. Because restructuring is not for people who don't have courage, but you are a courageous leader. I encourage you to restructure. Let me throw the ball back to Pastor Tola.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Chand. Once again, you've taken me back to school, so thank you again. My goodness, I can't believe this. There's so much learning, for me to do. I hope we have all been blessed today. We really appreciate Dr. Sam Chand. We'll quickly go to the question and answer sessions. If you're here to write in your question, please do so in the chat box, and we'll try and see if we can cover everything. There's a whole lot, But for the first question for Dr. Chand, how do you motivate your followers intellectually while restructuring the organization? And you talked a little bit about that when you talked about restructuring, will affect people. Do you understand? So how do we motivate everybody to be on board?
I am reminded of a simple thought that I have lived my life by. Never lead people anywhere till you have taught them. You got to teach people before you lead them where you're going. So God always tells people, I'm going to take you there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Jesus here for 3.5 years, he kept talking about what will happen, what will happen. And I think sometimes we do not lead people intellectually because we think of this as something that we've got to do. No, it's not something that you do. It is a lifestyle. So to answer the question, if you could draw a line, and put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 being accomplishing the restructure. From 1 to 3 is nothing but teaching about the what and the why. The what and the why. 1 through 3 is just teaching about what and why. You don't even start planning your restructure till 4 and 5. Restructuring does not start till your people have understood this is what we hope to do, and this is why we want to do that. So if I was around the table with you, Pastor Tola, you would very succinctly describe for me what GLC is doing and why GLC is needed. What and why. Once those two intellectual pillars are in the ground, now you can go to further down the road. Unfortunately, Pastor Tola, most people think, oh, I can just do this like this. And all they do is they create problems. Because here's my second paradigm. Things don't go wrong, they start wrong. That's an important sentence. Things don't go wrong, they start wrong. And starting right means answering the two fundamental questions again and again and again. Jesus spent nothing but 3.5 years with his disciples trying to explain to them the what and the why. And because of that, the disciples were able to go into the book of Acts. And here we are. So intellectually prepare people on the what and why. Take your time on it. If you are in a hurry to restructure, you will burn out early on. This is a marathon. Your microphone is not on. Your mic is not on.
I'm sorry. Yeah. How do we ensure an effective feedback loop within the systems and the structures? How do we ensure that you get, feedbacks that is going to help what you are trying to achieve?
So we always ask people for feedback, but all feedback is contingent on the level of trust for you. I can go asking people all the questions, the right questions in the right way, in the right location, at the right time. But if they don't trust me, they're not going to give me feedback, honest feedback, brutal feedback that I probably do not want to hear. And one of the things I've found is the trust gap. Those two are important words. The trust gap between those who are asking for feedback and those who are giving feedback has to be narrowed. And if the trust gap exists, you will get things like, oh, everything is good, everything is fine. Oh, we love it here. This is wonderful. But they are saying something different to people they trust. And that is why leaders have to work hard at closing the trust gap. And the trust gap is closed by being honest with people, by keeping things confidential, by making sure nothing bad happens to the people who give bad news, that they actually appreciate people, that they close the loop with people. Trust is built over time. So the people who are asking feedback and people who are giving feedback, if the trust gap is narrow, you'll get good feedback. If the trust gap is big, you're going to get pleasantries, but you're not going to get the brutal answer.
Now, I have, a rider, as it were, to the question that we asked earlier. When you are restructuring an organization and you are looking at names, not the systems, do you understand? And you look at some names and what comes to your mind is that who do you keep or do you let go? If you decide not to let go one or two people, because they are saying the right things, but they are not doing what is expected. So now, how do you deal with that? Do you understand? You have a leader in a box that is already has a system on it. Do you understand? But they are not doing the work, even though they are saying the right things. They go around as if the work is going to be done. Like, I'm the right person, I'm the right fit in this. But the results coming back show that they are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. What do you do with this? When actually, if you're now thinking, do I let go or what? Yeah, mind you, people on the outside think that they are doing the right things, So when you let go, you have to think of what is the effect, because people don't see them as not competent because they speak the right language, they have the right body language and all that.
Oh, you are talking on behalf of thousands of people in that question, especially in the church world where people know how to be godly and speak the right thing, and they can have charisma, and
welcome to my world again.
Yeah. So, and they make themselves look so good. And if you let them go, all of their friends and their family saying, he was a wonderful brother. She was a great sister. She prayed with me. And, you know, when I was in the hospital, she came, visited me, and all that happens there. That's a very, very difficult, what we call optics. Now, that is where at the higher level for organizations, it is always good to have metrics. That means measurements, and be done. Those evaluations need to be done at least 3 times a year, every 4 months. So if I was, for example, if I was your youth pastor, I'm going to make myself your youth pastor. If I was a youth pastor and I'm charismatic and people love me and everybody loves me, but I'm really not delivering what you're paying me to do. So you would say to me, Sam, right now you have 100 students in your youth program. Over the next 12 months, can we agree we can grow that to 150? Yes, Pastor, we can do that. Very good. So I'll meet with you in 4 months and see what happens with that. I'll meet with you again. And if you cannot deliver, but you got to, the second part of it is we have to remember, I said earlier, we have to over communicate during times of restructuring. I think you have to find ways of putting the word out there. Sam Chand is working hard to get us from 100 to 150. Pray for Sam Chand as he's working hard to get us from 100 to 150. Sam is working hard to get us from 100 to 150. So when it comes to a place where there's not 150, everybody knows what the expectations were.
So I'm sorry. So I'm not the only one evaluating them at that time. Everybody is able to evaluate them.
Exactly right. Because the unfortunate part happens, Pastor Tola, in churches is that we make these private agreements with public consequences. And you got to take that private agreement and take, so next, once you have agreed with Sam that I can move it from 100 to 150, the executive team, hey, Sam is working on 100, 150, the entire staff, Sam is working from 150, all the volunteers, Sam is working from 100, 150, all the parents, Sam is working from 150. Once in a while, Sunday morning during prayer request, pray for Sam as he has agreed to work hard to grow it from 150 to 100, 150. Everybody knows the finish line now. So when instead of 100, I have taken it down to 92, everybody knows that I did not know. But if you don't go public with it, then you are stuck with a private conversation with public private conversation with a public consequence. So you got to go public with it, and you can do that in a church, just like the way I just explained.
Okay. Thank you so much. One question and we'll let you go. What are the basic things to note when downsizing in an organization?
Every organization that I have worked with in the last 2.5, 3 years, Pastor Tola, has restructured and downsized. Because one of the things that the pandemic taught us was we don't need all that to do what we are doing. So downsizing is really not the right word. Right sizing is the word. You are right sizing. Remember, I talked about aligning our resources to our vision. So right sizing means, so for example, one of the companies I have in which we do media and publishing and so on and so forth, at one time had 45 employees. But we refocused and now we are at 30 employees. We did not downsize, we right-sized. Right-size means this is where we are or this is where we're going and here are the people resources that we need. Downsizing has that negative connotation. Downsizing means the business is not doing good, church is not doing well, they're having to let people go. No, we are right-sizing. So I have seen churches that have grown during this time and right-sized it so they have fewer people, but higher qualified, more competent, and people who are making delivery on what they were expected to do. So right sizing. The question for organizations is, at this age and stage of our life, what is the right size staff that we need? One of the ways that I think churches can think about is the percentage of their annual budget that goes towards paying people. 35% is average, 50% is red light, 45% is orange light. So that's one way to do that. But I think right sizing is a question every organization is asking itself, corporate or church. So it's not downsizing, it is right sizing.
Okay. Once again, Dr. Sam Chand, thank you so much.
I love you,
we
sir.
have more questions, but our time will just not permit, to be able to answer, some of those questions. Maybe what we'll do is that we'll email them to you, and if you can oblige us to, just type in the answers, and then we can put them on our notes for people to see.
One thing I've learned about you, you're always making more work for me.
I'm trying because, when you said earlier that assuming you are my youth pastor, I said the average member of the church will be about 80 years old if you are the youth pastor. Once again, honestly, you have always been a blessing, and we really appreciate you. We want to thank all the members of your team, your wife, Rachel. We want to thank her. I want to thank Rachel and everybody that is associated with you. You've made this very seamless for us. And when I grow up, and I mean that, I'm going to be like you. One more time, please, let's appreciate Dr. Sam Chand. Thank you so much. Thank you. And God bless you. I'll hand over to PJ right now. PJ, please take over right now.
Thank you, Pastor Tola. Thank you, Dr. Chand, for an amazing session. At this time, we'll be taking a short break for 5 minutes, and then we will be back with our next session. See you then.
Today, leadership is proven to be the most influential and critical element of businesses and organizations. At every level of an organization, strong leadership and influential skills are required to drive innovation, inspire performance, boost productivity, and collaborate within a diverse workforce. Effective leaders possess the necessary tools and skills to inspire and impact their teams, allowing the organization to run smoothly and competently. The Alpha Leadership Conference is an organization charged with promoting and teaching leadership skills to individuals at every level of an organization. Through conferences and seminars hosted in various cities around the world, such as the Great Leadership Conference here in Baltimore, speakers and industry experts share insights and teach on how to improve processes, develop systems, and lead the next generation. The Great Leadership Conference has featured prominent and world-renowned speakers such as Dr. Mensa Otabil, Pastor Paul Adefarasin, Pastor Agu Irukwu, Dr. Tim Elmore, Mr. Sean Lovejoy, Pastor Cindy Trim, and Pastor Femi Atoyebi, amongst many others. The Alpha Leadership Conference is the vision of Pastor Tola Ojutala, its chairman and the senior pastor of Jesus House Baltimore. Pastor Tola consults, mentors, and coaches pastors. He speaks frequently at leadership conferences, at churches, with corporations, and at ministers' conferences and seminars, amongst many other leadership development opportunities. Pastor Tola has a passion to challenge people to pursue and maximize their God-given potential.
Too often, we drift from one action to another without thinking about the choices we have made. In fact, our direction seems normal that we don't even realize we have made a choice that has significant consequences. The book Line Crossers by Pastor Tola Odutola is a book that helps you find wisdom and courage you need to cross over the lines that challenges you. No matter your background, the message of this book will help you cross over your lines with strides of hope and confidence. To get a copy of this book, simply visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order and watch yourself cross over into your victory. Conference materials such as audio and video recordings of this conference can be purchased in the GLC website at www.greatleadership.net. A short survey will be available during the conference via a link that will be posted in the chat section of this live stream. Kindly complete this survey. It is easy to become complacent with life. The hurtful backgrounds, failed dreams, and scars from your past gives one excuses for having no expectations in life. However, in the book, I Am Better Than This, Pastor Tola Odutola inspires readers to relentlessly pursue a better future despite the challenges that will surely arise. To get a copy of this life transforming book, kindly visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order.
Thank you.
Today, leadership is proven to be the most influential and critical element of businesses and organizations. At every level of an organization, strong leadership and influential skills are required to drive innovation, inspire performance, boost productivity, and collaborate within a diverse workforce. Effective leaders possess the necessary tools and skills to inspire and impact their teams, allowing the organization to run smoothly and competently. The Alpha Leadership Conference is an organization charged with promoting and teaching leadership skills to individuals at every level of an organization. Through conferences and seminars hosted in various cities around the world, such as the Great Leadership Conference here in Baltimore, speakers and industry experts share insights and teach on how to improve processes, develop systems, and lead the next generation. The Great Leadership Conference has featured prominent and world-renowned speakers such as Dr. Mensa Otabil, Pastor Paul Adefarasin, Pastor Agu Irukwu, Dr. Tim Elmore, Mr. Sean Lovejoy, Pastor Cindy Trim, and Pastor Femi Atoyebi, amongst many others. The Alpha Leadership Conference is the vision of Pastor Tola Odutola, its chairman and the senior pastor of Jesus House Baltimore. Pastor Tola consults, mentors, and coaches pastors. He speaks frequently at leadership conferences, at churches, with corporations, and at ministers' conferences and seminars, amongst many other leadership development opportunities. Pastor Tola has a passion to challenge people to pursue and maximize their God-given potential.
Welcome back, everyone. That was indeed an insightful session by Dr. Sam Chand. I believe you would have to go back, maybe even with your team, to listen to that session. So kindly note that the video and audio for all sessions will be available. Actually, they are available for pre-order now. You can pre-order them right now by visiting alphaleadership.net. Also, here is a reminder that the convener, Pastor Tola Odutola, has authored books including Line Crossers and I Am Better Than This. Now, I have read both books, and the amazing thing is that I can assure you that they are full of practical steps, methods, and tools that are actually, that speaks to the theme of this conference, structure and restructuring. You can also visit alphaleadership.net to grab your copies. I want to implore you all to please have your questions ready for the speakers. Kindly type your questions into the comment box, the chat box of whatever platform you're using, so we can have them ready to pass along to the speakers. Once again, please go ahead, share the link with your friends, your family members, your co-workers, have them join in on this conference and be impacted just as you are. Our next speaker is Mr. Banky Wellington, and Mr. Wellington will be speaking to us on building structures for your dreams and visions. At this time, I would turn it over to Pastor Tola to introduce our guests.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are all over the world. It's my pleasure once again to come into your space and concerning the GLC 2022. Our speaker, our next speaker is someone that is well known by quite a number of us, well sought after. I remember many years ago, I think he pastored our church, and I told my children that I had that he was in our church. And my children said, "Did you meet with him? Did you take his picture? Did you take a picture with him?" I said, "No." And they looked at me like, "What's wrong with you? That please, next time, if this man, you must make sure you get to meet with him and all that, of course, he came back again, and I think I did the needful, even though I still don't have the picture. I have to make sure I get that, But today, he is here, to speak to us. He's someone that is well sought after. He's a believer. He's an actor. He's a motivational speaker. He's a preacher, and he's also a politician. Do you understand? So there are so many parts, of him. We're going to have his intro video now. And after that, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Banky Wellington. Once again, I want to appreciate you for being part of this conference. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So can we have the video, and then Mr. Wellington takes over.
Mr. Olu Bankole Wellington, popularly known as Banky W, is a multi-talented and prolific singer, songwriter, actor, filmmaker, businessman, and philanthropist. He grew up in Lagos, where he began singing in church at an early age. He then moved to New York, where he earned a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. His debut album, Undeniable the EP, was released in 2003, and this propelled him to the forefront as an independent musician. Mr. Banky Wellington served as executive producer and lead A&R for some of the continent's most successful albums, including Wizkid's smash hit filled debut album, Superstar, Ayo, and many others. As an accomplished writer, many of his articles have been published with Nigerian newspapers, blogs, magazines, and other media platforms. As a philanthropist, he founded the Banky Wellington Organization, through which he spearheads and partners with other organizations for charitable activities. He also established the I Am Capable Scholarship Fund, which has provided educational assistance for deserving youth over the years at the tertiary education level in Nigeria, the USA, and Canada. He is married to Nollywood actress Adesola Etomi Wellington, and they are blessed with a son. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Mr. Banky Wellington.
All right. Pastor Sola, can I go ahead?
Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's actually evening here in Lagos, but we will respect the time zone difference and say good morning. It is truly a pleasure and a privilege to be able to connect with all of you today. I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to be here to share. I want to give special recognition to Pastor Tola and the entire church conference team who have put this amazing conference together. I want to appreciate you for inviting me to participate. But I also want to challenge you, because when they first told me that Pastor Tola wanted me to speak at the conference some months ago, I was excited because I thought I was going to get flown out to Baltimore to come and be there with y'all in person. But, I guess the world has changed now, and, it's good, we get to connect regardless of time zone or time difference and distance. But I was looking forward to being there with you guys in person, and I hope that the next time that I get to to speak with you, it will be in person, because I really like that opportunity to connect. Plus, my family lives in the Maryland area, and I've not seen them in like 2 years. So I was trying to use it to see them. But anyways, so thank you, Pastor Tola. Thank you to the entire team for making this possible. We're going to get into this today. We'll be talking a bit about lessons in leadership and structure. I trust that you've been blessed by the conference thus far. And I hope you've been taking notes, because honestly, these kinds of conferences are always so powerful and impactful, and they're a great time. We almost, we get almost like a spiritual and an emotional high from being in sessions like this and listening to people speak and share from their experiences. But it's really what happens after the conference that counts. It's what happens after church on Sunday, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday through the week. It's what happens in the rest of your year when you are not sitting in this session that counts. And so I want to encourage you, if you haven't been taking notes thus far, please try. I know some people are probably in motion, and if you can't do it because of what you're doing right now, that's fine. But if you are somewhere that's stationary and you can take some time out while you're tuned into this conference, please try and write some things down. I think it'll help you. I learn by writing, so I take a lot of notes wherever I'm at. We don't have a lot of time. I think I was told I have about an hour, maybe an hour and change, and I do want to address specific questions that people may have. So I'm going to try and share for the first maybe 30 to 45 minutes as God gives me the grace, and then we'll try and tackle specific questions that people have for the remainder of the session, if any of those questions come up. So like I said, today we'll be talking about lessons in leadership and the importance of structure. I'll be sharing some of the leadership lessons that God has taught me that I'm still learning by His grace. And the way we'll go about it is that we'll start with the major points that we're going to make, and then we'll back it up with some examples. Those examples would be a combination of perhaps real life examples from my life or from the lives of other people that I've studied or read about. Or there will be some examples from scripture, because I know this isn't a church service, but at the end of the day, the church is not a building, it's a body. Okay, and we are the church. So wherever we're at, church might just pop off. All right, so we'll get into the lecture now. But yes, we'll do the lesson. We'll do some real life examples, whether that's from my life, the lives of others, or from the lives of people in scripture. And hopefully that will help to bring the points home. And so before I go any further, for everybody that's tuned in right now, wherever you are, whatever country you're in, whether you're at home, you're at work, you're in the church building, you're in school, or you're in your office or your bedroom, I want you to do me a favor, stretch your hands as wide as you can. I'm serious. This is a real task. I want you to stretch your hands as wide as you can and give yourself a thunderous round of applause. I can't hear. Are you doing it? Tell yourself congratulations. Say congratulations to me and say it out loud. You made the time to be here, to carve out some very precious time out of your day to be here in a leadership conference. That means to a certain extent, you already identify yourself as a leader. It could be in your home, it could be in your family, it could be on your job, even if you are not the boss. It could be amongst your circle of friends or your network. But in whatever facet of life that you are in right now, or the one that you envision, you see yourself as a leader. That's why you're here in this conference. So I want you to tell yourself congratulations. Now, the second thing that I want you to do is give yourself a very big hug. Like, give yourself a hug. Say, oh, say pele. My Yoruba people say pele. Say, tell yourself pele. Okay, say, hey, yeah. I assume that there are enough Nigerians on the call, so you understand the intonations in my speech. And the reason I tell you to do that is because the minute that you decide to try and live up to your calling as a leader, it is inevitable that you will get both congratulations and condolences. So to congratulate someone means to praise them for an achievement. It also means to give them good wishes when something special or pleasant has happened to them. But condolence is an expression of sympathy when someone has gone through something difficult. And if you're truly going to be a leader, you will need to be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually prepared for congratulations and condolences, because I guarantee you, you will experience both in your journey. And it's not a curse, it's just the reality of life and leadership. So today I am going to focus, like I said, on some short lessons in leadership, coming more from the angle of self-leadership, because if you want to lead, if you want to improve or change your society or your organization, if you want to improve or change a situation, a good place to start is by improving yourself. And so I will start with the first lesson, and I hope you're writing this down. I'm trusting that you're writing this down. So the first lesson I want to make points about is character. Character. And luckily for you, every point or every lesson that I'm going to make today starts with the same letter. They start with the letter C. So even if you're driving and you can't really remember everything, it'll be easy for you to remember because of the way that I've entitled it. But also I want to encourage you to go back and watch the videos, after this. I think the church has made it possible for you to order the session. So please make sure you go back and watch it. So the first point is character. What are we saying? Great destinies require great character. And the interesting thing about character is that no one can lay hands on you and impart character into you. Character can only be built by the experiences that you go through. So you will need a character that is big enough for the calling that God has placed on your life. You will need skin that is thick enough for the trials, because the journey of leadership can be lonely and it can be difficult. And I don't mean to depress you, but it is true. Leadership is lonely. The moment you decide to step up, I said this earlier, the moment you decide to step up, answer the call on your life, rise above your current surroundings, you become a target. If you step out of the crowd, you become isolated. You become a target of the enemy. You immediately open yourself up to new levels of conflict, because to whom much is given, much is required. So much will be required of you in your leadership journey. You will need the kind of character that can handle the destiny that God has prepared for you. And so when we talk about character, we're really talking about thick skin, right? So I was giving a message just like this in Zambia recently. And I was having a chat with the minister, the Honorable Minister for Information in Zambia. And, she'd been in public service for a while. She was a 2-term serving member of parliament, which in the US, I think we call it Congress in the US, or the National Assembly in Nigeria. By the way, as some of you may know, I'm running for House of Reps in Nigeria, and I will win in Jesus' name. Somebody say amen. But I was chatting with this member of parliament, and I said to her, do you have any tips for me, as I proceed on this journey into politics and into public service? She said, I have 2 words for you: thick skin. And it's so true. For the journey that you're going on, you need skin that is thick enough to withstand the trials that will come your way. And you don't know how thick your skin is until someone tries to cut you, until you go through something difficult or dark. That's when you know how tough you are, when life tries to hurt you and harm you, but you're still standing. You need the skin that can withstand the good and the bad, the persecution and the praise. Now, there's a really great story in Acts chapter 12. We don't really have the time to read all of the scriptures that I may reference today, but I'll just tell you about it. And I'm sure you know it. I mean, this is Jesus House, Baltimore. There's no scripture that I'm going to open that you people don't know, okay? But in Acts chapter 12, it's the story of when Peter miraculously escaped from prison. And it says he was fastened with 2 chains in between 2 soldiers, and the angel shows up and it breaks him loose. And Peter thought it was a vision, and he didn't realize it was really happening. But until, he'd gone through and broken out of the prison, and everybody knows that story. Now, the interesting thing about scripture is that a lot of times we like to skip over to the highlights, right? The good parts, the miracle, the angel busting Peter out of the chains and out of prison. And that's where our minds immediately want to kind of go to is, oh, what ended up happening, right? But if you start at the beginning of that chapter, the Bible talks about King Herod persecuting believers. It says he killed James. Now, this is the James, right? One of the first two disciples that Jesus called is the same James that was part of Jesus's innermost circle. There were 12 disciples, but then there were the three, not the 12, the three, Peter, James, and John. Those were the closest to Christ. They're the ones that he took up on the Mount of Transfiguration. That James, the brother of John, one of the first two disciples, was beheaded. And then Peter was arrested, presumably to face the same fate. So how depressing is that? At the same time as the disciples and the apostles are living up to their calling and pursuing purpose and performing miracles and preaching the word and turning the world upside down, and doing all these amazing things, at that very same time, they're targets. They're being targeted, they're being arrested, they're being murdered. And if you were Peter, before the angel comes and you're sitting alone in that jail cell, how does that feel? Knowing that your comrade James has just been killed, and you're up next on the chopping block, and you're isolated, you're separated from family, from friends, from freedom. It's lonely. Leadership is lonely. Sometimes it's sad, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you're actually afraid, you're scared, you're under pressure, you're stressed. And in verse 3 of that same chapter, it says, when Herod saw how much this pleased the Jewish people. And that tells us that your persecution might please people. Sometimes the very same people that you are trying to help or lead, there's the very same people that you are fighting for or praying for, the very people that you are called to lead, sometimes your persecution will please those people. And I can tell you for free, it sucks. There was a great African leader called Benjamin Burombo, and he said, each time I want to fight for African rights, I only use one hand because the other hand is busy trying to keep away Africans who are fighting me. And that quote just kind of stuck with me. It's the one that is chasing purpose that gets the persecution. Because there are some people that it feels like the enemy doesn't really bother with, right? Because they don't bother the enemy. So you're the one that is called to be the light of the world. You're the one that is called to be the light in darkness. You're the one that darkness will have a problem with. For, John chapter 1 from verse 1 to 5 says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him, nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. The darkness did not comprehend it. So is it any wonder that sometimes people do not comprehend you? Quit sitting around crying because people misunderstood you, or people they don't comprehend you, they don't understand you. They're not meant to. We need to learn to free ourselves from the bondage of needing to be liked by everybody, whether that's in church or school or work or politics or your book club, your boat club, wherever. It's not actually possible for everyone to like you. Jesus Christ, by every account, was perfect. And even if you are not a Christian, reasonable minds, even in academics, have acknowledged that Jesus Christ is the greatest leader in human history. Okay, till date, he has almost 2 billion followers, and he has inspired more people than anyone else in human history. But people still disliked him so much that they killed him. Until this day, Jesus Christ does not have everybody convinced. About a third of the world's population practice some form of Christianity. That means 2/3 of the world's people are just like, yeah, no, I'm not convinced, right? So we need to learn that we must free ourselves from the bondage of needing to be liked by everyone. Free yourself from the need for everyone's approval. I say this all the time. Don't get your validation from the comment section. In these days of social media, and I'm preaching to myself. I'm speaking and teaching myself here too, because when we do a post, what's the first thing that you naturally want to do? You immediately post, you go to the comment section. Even if it's not your post, You see something that is interesting or funny or crazy or wild or whatever, it's almost like it's a natural inclination to immediately go into the comment section to say, okay, what do other people feel about this thing that I have put? Do people approve? You check the likes, you check the comments. It's like there's this natural inclination that we have to seek approval from everyone, but we have to learn that we can't get our validation from the comment section. For me, the T in PTSD stands for Twitter. Twitter is the T in PTSD. For my mental health, I was just having a conversation with Adeso about this the other day. For my mental health, I have learned to disconnect from social media, especially Twitter, because that's where the mob thrives. And so if you are seeking for validation in the opinions of the masses or the mob, it's like spending all day in a trash can and then wondering why you stink. Because human opinions are fickle. They will honor you one day, they will hate you the next. They will crown you one day, they will crucify you the next. It only took 6 days to go from Palm Sunday, where people are saying, Hosanna in the highest, crown him, to Crucifixion Friday. So people will always have opinions on what you should and shouldn't do, and how you should or shouldn't go about this journey that you're going on. But they are not your maker. You get your validation and your instructions from God, not from people's expectations or their limitations on you. You know, some people will try to limit you because they've placed those limitations on themselves, and they feel like because they cannot do what you are called to do, then you shouldn't be able to do it either. Now, coming into a real life example of what I'm talking about, I've never been dragged in my life. I told you the T in PTSD, for me, it stands for Twitter. Okay, post-Twitter stress disorder. And the truth is, I've never been dragged in my life so much. Like the day I said, oh, I want to get into public service, I want to get into government, I feel like we can do this better, we can't keep complaining. You know, the day I decided to stick my neck out, that was the beginning of my dragging. There's a great Greek philosopher called Plato who said that the punishment for not participating in politics is that you will end up being ruled by your inferiors. What Plato didn't say is that the punishment for participating in politics is that they will drag you like a generator. I know you guys live in America, so y'all don't know you may have forgotten what I'm talking about. You know, there's a generator that you drag, those face me, I face you generators. Because the truth of the matter is people will drag you. They will throw stones at you. They will question you. They will criticize you. They will slander you. Sometimes it's people that don't even know you. They've never met you. They've never heard you speak. They've never interacted with you. But all of a sudden, because you are doing something that seems foreign to them or what they expect, they become suspicious. They don't understand you. They say things and it will hurt. They will drag your reputation through the mud. And your natural instinct will be to want to fight to protect your reputation, right? So for me, for example, in 2019, we were running for office, and one day I see it on Twitter. There's a troll account, because people have all kinds of troll accounts that they use to just spread propaganda, fake news. A troll account comes online and says, oh, here's a picture of Banky and Adesoa boarding a plane to Abuja to go and collect 250 million from the government. The thing was so absurd to me that I was actually, it actually, in the beginning, it felt so absurd and so ridiculous that nobody will pay it any mind. And the next thing I know, the tweet gathers steam and people start saying, oh, yes, that's what they're doing. You see, there's no evidence, there's no shred of truth to what this account said. And yet people started heaping insults and dragging and saying, yes, they're all corrupt. This is what they're going to politics to do. And I'm now starting to try to, by the time you answer one here, 10 have fired you here. By the time you answer 2 here, another 20 have come. And I was so taken aback by what people were saying and the dragging and the false stories. And
And that was just one of the instances. There was another one where they said, oh, he wants to be a politician. He skipped a line to go and get a voter's card. Just things that were completely false. I still saw some the other day. And the truth is, when people start saying things about you, your natural instinct is to want to engage and debate and argue that they're wrong, because it is your reputation that they're dragging. But the challenge is this: if you're going to be a leader, we have to learn that our focus must be on building our character more than it is on fighting for our reputation at every turn. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some times that you must defend yourself. There are some times that you must battle, but not at the cost of building, because it is your character that God is interested in. Can your character withstand the destiny that he has called you for? The book of Nehemiah is a fantastic example. They're trying to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. People are ridiculing Nehemiah. They're mocking him. They're questioning him. They're actively working against him. He's focusing on building. But when they had to, he told them, he said, that's why you have two hands. You use one hand to build. You put a building tool in one hand. You put a sword in the other. You build and you battle. So when you battle when you absolutely have to, but you never stop building. Okay? And that's the thing about character. I said this before. Great destinies require great character, but character cannot be prayed into you. No one can lay hands on you and give you character. Character can only be built through perseverance, through endurance, through going through difficult circumstances, through going through storms. Okay? In my early Twitter days, this is what we're talking about Twitter, I used to engage with everything. If you come for me, you better be prepared because I'm going to come for you. I remember one time there was a girl that abused me on Twitter. She said, I don't like Banky W because he has a head like FIFA World Cup. I immediately retweeted her and I replied, I said, I don't like you because you have a face like Shrek. And I will go pound for pound. Anything, anyone, whether it's a joke, whether it's an insult, whether it's a rumor, and I would go pound for pound with people. And over time, God taught me to hold my tongue and to prevent myself of feeling the need to give in to the urge to engage in every battle. The more he's taken me on this journey, the more he's taught me to hold my tongue. The more he's taught me to learn on focusing on building my character. There's something that I learned. I heard this from a Pastor Ramsey, somebody that I listen to all the time. Meekness is not weakness. Don't get it confused. Meekness is not weakness. When Jesus was standing there being spit on and abused and insulted and mocked and beaten and dragged, to the average person, he would have looked weak. He could have opened his mouth and called down angels and fire from heaven. He could have cursed those people for what they did to him. He could have at least responded and engaged with them. But the last thing that he said until he hung on the cross was when they asked him, are you the Messiah? Are you the Son of God? He said, yes, that's who I am. From that point on, he said nothing. He refused to give in to the urge to respond, okay, because he had his eyes on a greater destiny that was ahead of him. And I think that's the lesson for us is keep your eyes on the destiny. Keep your eyes on the race that you're running. Don't engage in everything. Meekness is not weakness. It is strength. It is wisdom. It takes more strength to hold your tongue and to shut up than it does to speak. There's an urge that we have to fight to give in, to want to revenge, to respond and revenge. And here's the thing. Revenge is not wrong. Revenge is not wrong. Vengeance is not wrong. It just does not belong to us. The Bible says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Revenge is not wrong. It just does not belong to us. Resilience is our job. Revenge is God's job. All right. So we're still talking about character. There's another thing I want to talk. We talked a little bit about thick skin. There's another thing I want to say about character, and that's really to focus on humility. Now, don't mistake humility for insecurity, because they're not the same thing. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. And the truth of the matter is, it is a spiritual principle that God honors humility. It's a spiritual principle. In 1 Peter 5:5, James 4:6, it says the same thing. God opposes the proud and he gives grace to the humble. So that word opposes, it literally means, you guys are in America, So, like when you're watching American football, the NFL, and the Baltimore Ravens are playing against another team. That word opposes means that God is literally playing like a linebacker for the other team. So that when you are prideful, when you are giving in to pride, God is literally playing for the opposite team as a linebacker to prevent you from running through. And I don't know about you, but I want to be on God's side. I don't want him to be opposing me. The Bible says God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Luke 14, verse 11. I know it's not a sermon, but I do have some scriptural references. Forgive me. Luke 14, verse 11 says, for everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Is it any wonder that God honors humility so much that the King of Kings was born in a manger? And we romanticize mangers. We romanticize the birth of Jesus Christ, right? We say, silent night, holy night. Listen, we have a son. I've witnessed the birth of a child. There's nothing silent about it. There's nothing, all is calm, all is chilled. Oh, it's so nice. No, there is a hectic night. It's a stressful night. There's crying, there's pushing, there's stress, there's sweat. It's hectic. And now to do all of that in a manger, where farm animals are, where they use the bathroom, where, it's smelly, but that just shows you that humble beginning, that's what God wanted, right? And even when Jesus grew up and after he'd done miracle upon miracle, he still got down and washed his disciples' feet. God honors humility. It is a spiritual principle. We're talking about character still. There's a story that I've shared before. I'd like to share it with you guys. Many years ago, before Nigerian music became what it is, the global, behemoth that is, taking over radio stations all over the world. Many years ago, at this point in time, we had never had a major Nigerian concert. And what I mean by that is, in the States, now it's almost commonplace to see some of our artists doing like Madison Square Garden or Barclays Arena or some of these massive arenas in the States or even in the UK, like the O2 Arena. Back in this story that I'm telling you, back then, it had never been done. Most of the time when you're doing a Nigerian show, it was some small restaurant or lounge or club or something, somewhere, some choral somewhere. In any case, there was a guy who said, he wanted to put his money where his mouth is, or just, we all believed that the day would come that Nigerian music would take over the globe. So this friend of mine said, he was gonna invest and fund a concert. And it was in the DMV area. I don't remember which arena it was. I think it was in Baltimore, and I don't remember the name of the arena, but some of you who were around back then, you know what I'm talking about. So he booked this, really big venue, and then there was gonna be this show. And there were three main artists who were going to perform at the show. There was the headliner, who everybody at the time was coming to see. He was the one with all the hit songs. He was the one with the storied career. He was the one who had done, really amazing things in Nigeria, around Africa, around the world. So really, this concert was all about this guy. And then there were two other artists. One was an old school artist who, he was maybe a headliner back in the day, but, he was an old school guy now. He's really, really like an elder in the music business. He still played and sang a bit. So they brought him to kind of put a little bit of an old school flair to this show. And then there was an upcoming artist, somebody who was just starting out at the beginning of his career. So there were these three artists, the headliner, the old school guy, and the upcoming guy. And they do the show, the old school guy and the upcoming artist kind of set up the show as they would. And then the headliner comes and, he's the one everybody came to see. We have this amazing show, and then it's over. And after the show is the after party. I know I'm talking to a church crowd, but I know you guys know what I'm talking about. So at the after party venue, they have it all set up, the VIP section for the headlining artist, as they should have done. So they have the velvet ropes And, it's sectioned off with, his tables and his drinks and the security personnel and the staff, the way, everybody's all kind of on standby for the headliner to come. And the upcoming artists and the old school artists arrive. And, they have a little small stool up somewhere because they've not reached that level of success in their lives. So they have a small stool and chair somewhere up on the side somewhere for them to sit. And the headliner comes there and immediately realizes that they had honored him and really just kind of discarded these other artists who had participated in this show and opened for him. And he immediately says, no, please, we're all artists. We all deserve the same kind of treatment. Please remove these robes. He goes there, speaks to them and says, oh, will you guys please join me? This section is for all of us. And he basically humbled himself to allow the others around him. He thought of himself a bit less and elevated the status of these other two artists. Now, the old school artist was Majek Fashek. The upcoming artist was me. The headline artist was Tubaba, Two-Face Idibia. And I love that story because we said God honors humility. Tubaba, like myself, like everybody else, we've all had our fair share of issues, problems, challenges that we need to walk through. But I believe there's a reason why his career has lasted so long. I mean, we're talking 2-3 decades. Because anybody that knows him and has spent time with him will tell you the guy is a humble guy. He's a humble man. You meet him, you feel like he's somebody that you've known all your life. He displays humility. And I've experienced it. And I've since gotten to know him. That was the first time I engaged with him. But I've gotten to know him over the years. And I can tell you for a fact that he's a humble guy. And what are we saying? You need thick skin in your character, but you also need humility. God honors humility. It's a spiritual principle. Let's move on because I think I've taken so much time and I've not even really gotten to everything that I want to talk about. The next point I want to make is about commitment. The first one was character. Second one is about commitment. Commitment talks about consistency. We're talking about self-leadership here. Consistency, being consistent in your focus, being disciplined in your duties. Greatness takes grace and grind. The grace comes from God. The grind comes from you. So what are you committed to? What are you consistent with? How are you committed in your day-to-day delivering of your duties, in the discipline of duty? There's a great story in scripture about when Samuel anointed David to become king. And, he anoints David to be king, and most theologians put David at the point of him being anointed. It was somewhere between 8 and 15 years old. So he's really, really young. Now, I don't know about you, but if the prophet of the land at that time came, put oil on your head and said, you are the next ruler of the nation, the very next day, you are probably walking around with, a level of high shoulders, you understand? Natural shoulder pad, because you're going to be king, someday. But if you really track the story of David, what happens after that? He goes back to being a shepherd boy. He goes back to tending sheep. He goes back to being an errand boy. He goes back to being disciplined in his duties. In fact, the day that was going to change his life, the day that he killed Goliath, he was tending sheep. They said, his father said, come, take this food to your brothers that are on the battle line. The Bible says he left his things with he left his stuff with the keeper of things and then went to go and see what was happening. So there's a level of commitment, there's a level of consistency, there's a level of discipline that you see there. When we read about how when Saul, they were looking for a musician for Saul, and they said, there's a boy. I mean, I've had a music career. I can tell you that the commitment level that you need to be so good that when they are looking for a musician for the ruler of the nation, they come and look for you. David is probably the greatest songwriter in the history of the universe, because here we are 3,000 years later, we're still quoting his psalms. We're still singing his songs. We're still writing songs from the songs that he wrote. What level of commitment do you have to be the shepherd boy, to be the errand boy, to be tending sheep, but to still find time to be writing, to find time to be practicing your skills as a musician, that when they are looking for a musician, they come for you. To still be a great warrior, to be a fighter, to be a soldier, that talks about commitment. Destiny is launched from the discipline of duty, okay? Victories occur on the battlefield, but they originate in the training. So David is working multiple jobs, but he still found time to be a great musician. He still found time to commit to writing, to learning, to listening to his lyrics. It takes thousands of hours of pure dedication. So many of us are stuck in the day-to-day responsibilities and requirements of our lives that we refuse to take the initiative to commit to self-development in any other area. So you don't go from knowing how to sing to singing at the Grammys or to winning awards. You put in the work. Greatness is something that you are blessed with, but it is also something that you work at. It's not leadership, greatness, you work at it. You spend a significant amount of your time alone working out of everyone's sights. You're learning, you're practicing, you're developing, you're training, you're improving yourself, you're improving your skill sets. Dedicate some of your time to becoming better at something. We spend so much of our time on phones these days. We spend them on our devices. We spend it on social media. I'm talking to myself. I'm not just talking to you guys. We spend so much of our time in WhatsApp, sending forwards, reading forwards, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. Have you ever thought that maybe that's why they call it a feed? They call your timeline a feed because you are literally feeding your mind, you're feeding your soul, you're feeding yourself on just information after information. And it's like, maybe that's why the Bible says, beware of the devices of the enemy. So if we're going to spend so much time on our devices, how about we use it to develop ourselves, to get better, to pick up a new skill? I learned how to cook from Google and YouTube. Ask my family, they'll tell you. You can learn a foreign language. You can pick up an instrument. You can listen to messages, listen to sermons. You can take leadership lessons. There's so much that you can commit to in your time on just developing yourself and getting better. I want to tell you a bit about Kobe Bryant, okay? Now, we all know who Kobe Bryant is. You know, he's passed now. But in high school, Kobe Bryant used to show up to practice at 5 a.m. and leave at 7 a.m. because school started at about 7:38. So he would show up, he would get up from his house, go to school at 5 a.m. just so that he could practice before school starts. When he made it to the NBA, his former coach came in early to work one day. Practice was scheduled for 11 a.m. and it was about 8:39. So all the lights in the gym were off. Coach gets to the gym a couple hours early to do some admin work. Here's the ball bouncing on the court. Goes out to see what's happening, and there is Kobe Bryant shooting in the dark hours before anyone else would even arrive, because he was learning how to score in difficult situations. A former teammate of his said in the 99-2000 season, Kobe broke his wrist on his shooting hand, which was his right hand. And he thought that meant for the first time, Kobe would not, come to practice the next day, or at least not be the first one in the gym. Except when this teammate gets to practice the next day, Kobe is already in a full sweat with a cast on his right arm, dribbling and shooting with his left hand. Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, two incredible Hall of Fame players in their own right, said that during the 2008 Olympics, on the first day of training camp, the whole team came down at 8 a.m. for a team breakfast before practice, 8 a.m. Kobe walks in with his trainers with ice on his knees, completely drenched in sweat. While everyone else had just woken up, still yawning, Kobe was already 3 hours and a full workout into his day. What are we saying? We're talking about commitment. Commitment to self-development, commitment to getting better, to doing better. You say you want to do great things for God. Fantastic. You want to build the biggest business. Okay. But how about you just start showing up to your job on time and being disciplined in your duty on your job? You want to own your own home, but how are you treating the place that you are renting? You don't wait until you get into your promised land before you display commitment and integrity. Like Joseph, it is the integrity and the commitment that you display that will propel you into your promised land. God will always do his part, but we have to do ours. All right?
So I want to move on quickly because there's a lot of time that has gone, and I still have quite a few things I want to touch on. So we'll move to the third point. First point was character. Type it in the chat if you're with me. First point was character. The second point was, type it in the chat, commitment. Okay. The third point that I want to make is courage. The dictionary meaning of the word courage is the ability to do something that frightens you. It means strength in the face of pain or grief, strength and confidence to move forward in the face of uncertainty. So faith requires courage. Faith lives in the space where you're moving forward with confidence, even when you are uncertain and unsure. Can you muster the confidence to try, to push forward, to change course if you have to, but to keep going even in the face of uncertainty? And I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about courage. And it's a lesson that God has been instilling in me a lot these days. And I've been speaking on it here in Nigeria at the Waterbrook, when I went to speak in Zambia, just this idea of courage. Now, I will crave your indulgence. Maybe don't bother about turning to scriptures. I'll just read it, and then you can make notes and check it out later. But it's a little known story in 1 Samuel chapter 14, from verse 1, and it's about Jonathan. So it says, one day, Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Come on, let's go over to where the Philistines have their outpost." But Jonathan did not tell his father what he was doing. Now, a bit of background context real quick. At this time, the Bible says that there were no blacksmiths in Israel. So Israel didn't have weapons. So they didn't have enough weapons. They didn't have enough people. They were outnumbered on every side. The Philistines and all of their enemies were terrorizing them. And so that's the context for where we are. So they are at war, or they're supposed to be at war, and they're surrounded on every side. And Jonathan says to his armor bearer, he says, "Come on, let's go to where the Philistines have their outposts." It also says that he didn't tell his father what he was doing. So what that means to me is that we must be careful about who we share our plans with. We must be careful about who we share our visions with, because not everybody, we said this earlier, not everybody believes or has the same faith level as you. Some people are going to immediately try and put limitations on you. So you have to be careful about who you share your plans with, and your ideas and your visions and the things that you want to go for. You have to be careful about who you share it with. Jonathan intentionally didn't tell his father, who was the king. So protocol would have required that he should have told the king. But some people know that sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Because I'm sure if he asked for permission, King Saul wouldn't have let him go. Let's get back to the story. So it says, meanwhile, Saul and his 600 men were camped on the outskirts of Gibeah around the pomegranate tree at Migron. They camped around the tree. Among Saul's men was Ahijah the priest, who was wearing the ephod, the priestly vest. Ahijah was the son of Ichabod's brother Ahitub, the son of Phinehas, son of Eli. Forgive me if I'm butchering the names, but you don't know how to pronounce them properly either. So just accept it like that. So Ahitub, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord, who had served at Shiloh. No one realized that Jonathan had left the Israelite camp. To reach the Philistine outpost, Jonathan had to go between two rocky cliffs that were called Bozez and Seneh. Now, that's important because Bozez and Seneh, one means thorny, one means slippery. So he had to go through a thorny and a slippery place to get to this outpost where he was going to go. And for me, that just means God didn't promise us that it will be easy, but he did promise us that we will have the victory. Okay, the presence of difficulty, the presence of difficulty does not mean the absence of the will of God. God doesn't promise easy, but he promises victory. Okay, let's go to verse 6. So Jonathan says, let's go across to the outpost of those pagans. Jonathan said to his armor bearer, perhaps the Lord will help us, for nothing can hinder the Lord. He can win a battle whether he has many warriors or only a few. Now, many people would focus immediately on the part where he says, God can win a battle whether he has many warriors or only a few. And I think that is amazing, and that's something to be celebrated. I focus on the word perhaps. Jonathan said, perhaps the Lord will help us. Perhaps. Perhaps. So he's saying, essentially, maybe, I don't know for sure if this is going to work out, but maybe, perhaps. What I do know is that it is not his will for me to stay here in fear and insecurity in this uncomfortable place. And sometimes being uncomfortable where you are is a sign that you need to grow to another level. So Jonathan is saying, I know for sure that it is not his will for me to be where I am. So I don't know where this journey is going to take me, but maybe. And how many people know that it's easier to redirect something that is already in motion than it is to get it to go when it's at a standstill? And that's the beauty of maybe. That's the power of perhaps. That's what faith is. Faith is the willingness to push forward on perhaps. That's what it looks like. It's confidence and it's uncertainty. It's instinct and insecurity. He's saying God can win with many warriors or a few, but perhaps he can win with me and you. So let's go. Let's do this. Somebody type in the chat. Let's do this. Okay? Watch what his armor bearer says in verse 7. He says, do what you think is best. I'm with you completely, whatever you decide. So Jonathan, by the way, some of us, if we're the armor bearer, we're saying, Oga, the king is there. You didn't go and greet him. You didn't go and ask him. The priest who has the ephod, which is the way that they used to seek the voice of God, is there. You have ignored all of them. You are not telling me that this is where you want to go and this is what you want to do on perhaps. Some of us would have been like, okay, bro, I wish you the best. God bless you. I'll be praying for you. Let me know how it goes. I'll see you when you get back. But the armor bearer says, I'm with you completely. Okay? And every one of us needs an armor bearer. I'll come back to that a bit later. Verse 8. All right then, Jonathan told him, we'll cross over and let them see us. Ladies and gentlemen, his brand new world innovative strategy to go and fight is we will cross over and let them see us. He says, if they say to us, stay where you are or we will kill you, then we will stop and not go up to them. But if they say, come on up and fight, then we will go up. That will be the Lord's sign that he will help us defeat them. I want to remind you that in all the verses we've seen thus far, you have not seen anything say, thus says the Lord. The voice of the Lord came to Jonathan. Thunder and lightning shook the skies. Okay? This plan of Jonathan's is hilarious. He says, we'll go over and expose ourselves to them. That's it. That's the plan. Enter the enemy territory. He didn't even say sneak up on them. He said, just expose ourselves. So Jonathan is making this up as he goes along. And the truth of the matter is, we are all making it up as we go along. Nobody knows everything. That's God's job. He's all-knowing. None of us are. None of us are. We're making it up as we go along. We're going to a certain degree off of instinct of where we feel the nudge. Now, the interesting thing about that scripture is earlier it says Saul was under a tree. The priest that was wearing the ephod, for those who may not know, and this is a redeemed place, so I know you probably know this, but the ephod was a priestly garment that they used to seek the voice of God. So there were stones on it, and based on whether the stones lit up or whatever the case may be, sometimes that's how they would hear God. God would speak through the stones. And, you know, when you think about it now, I'm like, okay, God, it would have been nice if we all had an ephod where there were stones and say, oh God, should I take this job? Should I start this business? The stone lit up. That means God said yes. The stone doesn't. God said no. But we have something better than an ephod on a priest. We have the Spirit of God. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells inside of us. So you have to trust that you carry the Spirit of God on your inside. And he's the one leading you. Okay? And so we're figuring it out as we're going along. There's a miracle in maybe. A lot of times, the great steps of faith, the great works of faith don't make sense to the people who don't have that same faith. Even in business, the great businesses, if you track the story of Apple back to the beginning, it's still faith. The guy Steve Jobs still had faith that, man, there's something that we can do here. Okay, that's what this is.
Peter, we read about Peter walking on water. You step out of a fully functioning boat onto water. You decide to use a stone to stone a giant, David. Every great act of faith, there's a little bit of maybe in there. There's a little bit of perhaps in there. I can trace everything great that has ever happened in my life, almost everything great that has ever happened in my life. I can trace it back to a moment where I said, well, I don't know, but maybe, okay? Pastor Blessed and Mercy Chinwo, they're fantastic, amazing friends of mine. PB was asking me, he had gone through some things, he's thought for a while that maybe he wasn't meant to date, he'd never get married. We canceled that. The Bible says, delight yourself in the Lord, he'll give you the desires of your heart. So we focus on delighting ourselves in God, and God will give us those desires. And fast forward some time later, he was like, he called me one day and he's like, oh, P-Banks, I don't know how far this messy babe, I'm thinking that, in fact, let me ask you a question. How did you know when you met her this way that you should approach her, that she was the one that you should ask out? I said, my brother, I didn't know. It was perhaps. It was maybe. Boya is like, it's possible that. And that's what it is. In fact, when I used to pray, we give God rules and instructions, and this is how I want you to do what I want you to do in my life. This is when I want it. This is how I want it. And I used to tell God, I don't want somebody from entertainment. For my eventual wife, I want somebody that's in oil and gas or telecoms or aviation. Me, I already have a crazy up and down job in entertainment. It's too unpredictable. I want somebody that has stability. God brought me an actress. The actress that God brought me, she used to tell God that she didn't want a politician. She didn't want a pastor. She didn't want a musician. Ladies and gentlemen, I am everything that she said she didn't want. That's what God does. But because God's ways are higher than ours, all right? But it still comes back to the moment of saying, perhaps, maybe. When I moved back to Nigeria, I used to live in Yankee. It was just like, you know what? Maybe we can move back to Nigeria and set up a record label. And maybe my music can work and we can set up a home for other people to launch out and get their own music careers going. And it started from that, from transitioning from a label into an agency. Now all of the work that we do in the corporate space, it comes back to that moment of saying maybe, perhaps. When we wanted to get into film, again, it's back to that moment of saying maybe. When I wanted to ask Adeswa out, it's back to that moment of saying perhaps. There is power in perhaps. Jonathan said that will be the sign that God has given them into our hands. Okay? It's like perhaps God will do it. Whether he has many words or he has a few, it's possible. So maybe he's going to do it with me. There's a great man called Zig Ziglar, and he said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So you have to start something. Take a step. Whatever that vision is, whatever that idea is, whatever it is that you know that God is calling you to lead, to do, to write, to be, to build, start something. Jonathan said, perhaps. Everybody has ideas. Everybody has thoughts. Everybody has visions. We say things like, it's the thought that counts. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not the thought that counts. It's the courage that counts. It's the action that counts. It is the willingness to push forward on perhaps. Okay, and for you may be listening to this right now and you feel like, man, there were things that you felt like you were supposed to do, a person that you were called to be, and too much time has passed, or you made too many mistakes. I've got great news for you. You are not powerful enough to mess up the plans that God has for your life. As long as you are still alive and there's breath in your lungs, there is still hope that you can achieve what God has called you to achieve. God is the script writer, the director, the producer, the editor of your life's movie. You're just an actor. The actor doesn't determine how the movie ends. The director does. Okay, so trust the director. People ask me, why are you running for office? Because I feel like I'm meant to. I feel like I'm called to run for office. I have a burden for it. I'm uncomfortable with where things are. And I know that where things are, this cannot be the will of God for us to be in this situation as a nation, for us to be in this oppression, in this poverty, in this downtrodden state. That's not the will of God. The Bible says in Proverbs 29, verse 2, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When the wicked are in power, the people mourn. This can't be it. This can't. And so we're going to push forward on perhaps. We're going to say we're going to get in there. We're going to get into the system. We're going to do what we need to do to transform the system from inside by the grace of God. And we know we're greatly outnumbered, but we believe that we are called to be Joseph in Pharaoh's palace. We're called to be Daniel in Babylon. We're going to go in there. We're going to educate ourselves on the ways of the system, but we're going to shine the light of God in that darkness. And we don't have everyone that we thought that we would have. We don't have all the money that we need, but we have God and we have faith and we have the possibility of perhaps. We have the miracle that is in maybe. Maybe God, maybe us, maybe now. Let's find out. The last thing that I want to touch on is counsel. We talked about character, we talked about commitment, we talked about courage. I want to talk about counsel. Jonathan picked his armor bearer as his counsel. You can't go on this journey alone. Sometimes you need armor bearers for the vision that God has called you to do. Sometimes you are the armor bearer for somebody else. Now, I do want to spend just maybe 5 minutes saying a couple of things that take this as a bit of counsel for those who are in business, because I think this is really important, because sometimes people listen to messages like this and they just, they want to rush out and do something. I think, and this is where the whole idea of structure comes into place. Now, the assumption that everybody who ever becomes an entrepreneur or starts an NGO or an organization or a company or a business, the assumption that we all tend to make is that if you understand the technical work in a business, then you understand the business that does that technical work. That assumption is false. I'll say it again. The assumption that if you understand the technical work in a business, then you understand the business that does that technical work. That assumption is false. What do I mean? Everybody who's ever become an entrepreneur has a light bulb moment, right? Maybe you work for a company most of the time, 99 times out of 100, you're working somewhere, you're working for a boss, you're working for a company. And then you get to that place of frustration where you're like, oh, I should be in business for myself. I shouldn't have to report to anybody. I should branch out and do something. And a lot of times that thing that you want to do is tied to that technical skill that you're delivering for somebody else. So you, maybe you are, for just to simplify it, you bake pies in a pie shop. And you're like, you know what, I'm really good at making this food, these pies or whatever. I should start my own restaurant. But just because you know how to cook, you understand the technical skill of cooking, doesn't mean that you have the skill to run the business that provides that result. Okay? And you have to be very careful that the business that you want to start, that you want to escape to, does not become what enslaves you. So if your business depends on you working in it, then you don't have a business, you have a job. And it is the worst job in the world because you can't close it when you want to, because if you close, you don't get paid. You can't leave when you want to, because if you leave, there's no one there to do the work. You can't sell it because nobody wants to buy a job. So be careful that you are not creating a job instead of actually creating a business. I was chatting with a friend of mine, and she was a girl here in Nigeria, and she was like, oh, I saw what you and Olamido have built with Suya Bistro. I'm really good at chin-chin and all these kinds of snacks. I really want to branch into business for myself. I said, okay, that's fantastic. She said, oh, the challenge I have, I've actually started it too, but I'm the only one that knows how to make chin-chin like this. I'm the only one that knows how to make the pastries that I want to sell like this. And so I must be there to do it. And I said, if your business depends on you working in it, you don't have a business, so you have a job, and you will never be able to fire yourself from that job. And there's a limitation to how far the job can go. A business is a system that you set up to produce a result. So don't set up a job, set up a business, set up a system. Even if in the beginning you are the one, and this is going to the because I wanted to touch on structure briefly. Even if you do your organogram and you say, okay, I need this marketing, I need sales, I need finance, and it's your own name that is in all those places. Your goal is to work and to grow enough where you're able to fire yourself from these individual parts of the structure that you've set up. But start with the structure. Start with the vision for what you want the business to be, how you want the business to behave to achieve that result, and then start to fill in people into that structure so that the structure produces the result as opposed to you producing the result yourself. It's just a little bit of advice for people that are going into business. Because at the end of the day, if your business does not explode, you might explode. One cylinder cannot produce the results of 12. So plan, envision, articulate what you see in the future for yourself, for your employees, for your business, and then start to shape your reality to fit that vision. The goal of your goal as an entrepreneur, and I'm speaking specifically to entrepreneurs here and people who are going to lead organizations and companies. The goal is to build a business that works without you, not because of you. The goal is to build a business that works without you, not because of you. Okay? So, first of all, start with why. Why do you want to do this particular business? Why is it this idea? This suya bistro, this agency, this pie shop, this restaurant or hair salon or whatever it is. Why is that a good business? Envision the life that you want to live for yourself in 5 years. What does that life look like? What kind of life do you want to live? You want to have 2 cars. You want to be able to take your family on vacation once a year. Envision that life and then try and put together, financially speaking, the amount of money you need to be earning to be able to fund the life that you eventually want to live. Okay? When you think through that, then you say, okay, how much money does my business need to be earning that after taxes and costs and all of that in this 5 years' time, how much money does it need to be earning for me to be able to live the lifestyle that I've envisioned? Then you now know how much your business needs to be able to generate. And that is what helps you answer the question, should I go into this line of business or not? Is there enough of a market? Is there enough of a demand for my business to produce the kind of results and to bring in the kind of success that will allow me live the kind of lifestyle that I want to live at that time? But once you have that idea, whether it's a business, whether it's an organization, whether it's politics, whether it's ministry, whatever, bringing this back to a close, let's go back to the point of courage. It's not the thought that counts. It is the courage that counts. And with these few points of mine, I know I've gone way over my time, but with these few points of mine, as my Niger people will say, I hope I've been able to convince you and not confuse you. Thank you so much. And that's all I want to share today. Thank you, Pastor Tola.
Thank you so much, Mr. Banky Wellington. I really appreciate, your insight, into our theme and our conference.
Thank you, sir.
Today. Thank you so much. Everybody, I know you've been blessed today, but I want us to hold on for a few more minutes because we have some questions that have come in, and we'll just like to ask you a couple of questions before we allow you to go. Number one is that talking about commitment, the question says, so how has structure helped you in your dreams and your visions? For instance, we know that that you sing, we know that you're a politician, we know that you're a businessman, and we all need commitment for those things to come to pass. So how has vision come to play with the commitment?
Okay, for me, I think that the role that structure has to play in the visions coming to pass, I think if you do not intentionally approach your dreams with structure in mind, then you are almost planning to deal with a level of chaos that eventually can turn your dream on its head. So for me, for instance, there were so many things that I wanted to do, right? But the way that I thought through it was to say, hey, yes, I want to be in music, I want to be in film, I want to go into advertising, I eventually want to own a restaurant, I want to do all of these. Those were dreams that I've had since I was a kid. But one, you have to structure what steps do you take first, right? So for me, it started with, let's attack the music first. And not trying to do a million things at once, just focus on my own musical career. Can I get this off the ground? Can that work? Now, the minute you put work into that and you see that that is starting to yield some results, then you start to shift the goalposts. And then you say, okay, can I bite off a bit more? Can I achieve a bit more? Can I shift the goalposts a bit more? For me, it was my music first, and then the record label. And then after the record label, it was like, okay, what other things can we branch into film? If I came out in the beginning and I said, oh, I want to sing. Oh, I've signed artists. Oh, I want to be an actor. Oh, I'm a director. Oh, and I'm doing all of these things in the same breath, then I would have spread myself so thin that I would not have achieved anything. So I think it's important to structure the steps that you're taking. Map it out one step at a time. You can't achieve everything in one go, but you can take the first couple of steps and then reevaluate and then move from there. And then the second thing is setting up structure around the individual steps that you are even taking. So for me, and for people who are in the music business, that yes, you're an artist, but you can't be the artist and the manager and the lawyer and the PA and the booking agent and all of those things in the same breath. So like when we talked about Jonathan and his armor bearer, who are your armor bearers? What are the roles? Even if you don't have the people yet, but what are the roles that you know that you need in your organization, in your company, and even if it's your own name that is there, but knowing that this is the structure that my company needs or my organization needs or my dreams need to come true, think through that structure first and fill in your own name there, and then be firing yourself from those roles as you build out and as you grow. And that then helps you create that structure and that system that will then help you get that desired result. I think for me, that's the way that I would answer that question.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes,
I love the part, that you talked about, getting lawyers or accountants, because most of the times what people try to do is that they try to do everything by themselves, and especially professional things. I always tell people, don't cut your costs on attorney fees. Do it right. Pay someone who knows and understands, the legal, wordings and things, so that when you are writing out contracts or you are reading out contracts, they tell you precisely what it means before you sign, so that you don't get 2 years down the line, you're saying, what did I get myself into? I hope somebody is listening there. I have another question, for you. Now, I know, no doubt, that you've gone through some of these things several times. As an artist, a film producer and an actor and, politician. How have you managed restructuring when most times restructuring affects people? You've had to take someone out of a role and you might probably not have another role for them in your organization. People at times take this very personal. How have you handled this so that, it doesn't mess up relationship at the end of the day?
Right. So I think that that's such a really, really great question. I think that, first of all, it starts from having the mindset that, especially when it comes to working with people, there are some people who God brings into your life that are meant to be there for life, right? Like my wife. In Jesus' name, by the grace of God, that's a lifelong commitment. Now, you will find, though, that in some seasons, there are people who, at that season of your life, in that point in the business or the project or whatever, they are so close with you that it feels like these guys are going to be around forever, but that doesn't end up being the case. It's like, when you are, when you see a building going up, the construction of a building, there's this thing they call scaffolding, right? Scaffolding is what they put up around the building as they're building it. And at certain points in the construction, the scaffolding is so close to the building that you actually can't get between, you almost can't get between the scaffolding and building. That's how close they are together. But then at certain points, the scaffolding goes away. And the truth is, some people are scaffolding. And you have to have that understanding that in your journey, there are people who, in that season of your life, they're going to be so close with you, you're going to be working so closely together. And then in another season of your life, they're going to be gone because their purpose and yours are different, or you no longer align. And you have to be able to say, the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Now, what you try to do, and it's not always possible, but what you try to do, and this is a lesson that my mother used to hamper on to me, is that you don't burn bridges behind you. And that means when that person goes away, when the scaffolding goes away, when the person, you've gone your separate ways, do your best to maintain some semblance of a relationship. Do your best to live in peace. Because you don't want to, first of all, you never know if you'll have to cross that road again. So you don't want to burn the bridge behind you, but also you don't want to sow seeds of resentment. You don't want to sow seeds of bitterness. You don't want to sow things that will come back and you won't know where you will reap it down the road. So one, accepting and understanding that some relationships just will not last forever. Two, being intentional about trying your best not to burn bridges, not to destroy relationships, even though they are being separated, still trying to leave them in a place of peace. And I think that would be it for me. And then the other thing I think is also understanding, and some of this will only come with insight from the Holy Spirit, but understanding when it is time to evolve, when it is time to go a different route, when it is time to try a different path, or use somebody else in a role that you need. So for us, we did the record label thing for a very long time. But even while we were doing the record label thing, we were focused on how do we add value, even as a label. We started doing the work that agencies do, and companies that were doing the work that were using us for it were paying us through advertising agencies because they had to pay an agency, but we were the ones doing the work. And we were doing it with just a view to saying, we're not going to be doing this record label thing forever. The music is a young man's game. You want to go on tour, you're on the road most of your year, you're traveling from city to city. It felt like there would get to a point in time where we would want to evolve past that need to say, myself and Tunde, our success is dependent on the last hit song that we put out, or the last show that we performed at, or the last endorsement deal that we signed. And so we started putting the building blocks in the foundation for where we knew that we wanted to evolve to, and just kind of trusting God and just planning and strategizing, deciding when it was time to kind of pivot and go in a different direction. And that meant trying to give a soft landing to some of the artists that we had at the time and people who were more focused on the record label side of the business at the time, again with a view to trying to maintain that sense of peace and that sense of relationship, but very intentionally saying, hey, this is the direction that we need to go, and these are the people that we need to work with to go in that direction, and these are the things that we need to put in place to get there.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me tell you a story and ask a question on a much lighter note.
Okay, sir.
I was in Nigeria many years ago, and I went out to lunch with a preacher, and the very known preacher, and we were at this hotel and we were having lunch, and I think maybe 30 to 40 people came to our table to say hello to him. And after a while, I asked him, I said, are we going to eat today? Or you're going to be greeting people? And he said, this is the problem that he has. That's why it's difficult for him to go out. So do you go out at all to have lunch or dinner?
So the ironic thing with me, sir, is that I actually go out, and I go out a lot. And not just to go and eat, I do the grocery shopping in my house. I go to the supermarkets, I go to the stores, because I've also always felt like I don't want to be a prisoner of fame that says, because I'm popular, I must hide and people can't see me. Now, it does come with depending on where you go, a lot of people asking for pictures. But, the way I look at it is you could very well be there and nobody cares. So the fact that people want to ask you for a picture or want to say hi or something like that is a sign that, God has used you to touch them in some way. And so I'm grateful for that. So it inspires gratitude. Yes, there are some times that you're tired or stressed out and you're not really in the mood. But I try to have that, for lack of a better way to put it, that attitude of gratitude around where God has brought us thus far, and the fact that we're still here and still relevant. And I try to approach it from that mindset. So I don't let it hinder me from doing things, taking my wife out for a date or going to the grocery store. But it does come with what you have described. And we take it.
Okay. So I also take note that when next we see, I'm going to take my own picture so that I can.
No problem, sir. A whole photo shoot. I'm here for you.
Once again, I want to appreciate Bankole Wellington. Thank you so much, for a thought-provoking, session. And we believe that we've taken one or two things, out of what you've presented today. And we can only but wish you the best in everything that you do. And very soon, hopefully we'll start to call you Honorable Banky Wellington.
Amen.
And we'll see you around. Thank you so much. So I'll hand over now to PJ to take over. Thank you. God bless you. PJ, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Wellington. Thank you, Pastor Tola. That was indeed an inspiring and insightful session. And I believe we've been really blessed thus far this morning. So today's evening session begins promptly at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and also 11 p.m. West African Time. And our speaker for this evening session is a visionary leader and a highly sought after speaker, and that's Pastor Tola Odutola, the convener himself. He will be speaking on structure and restructuring in life and ministry. So please remember to be here promptly. We'll be starting at exactly 6 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 p.m. West African Time. Our second speaker for this evening also is a prolific speaker, a strategist, and a leadership expert, and that's Dr. Sam Adeyemi. He will be speaking on creating and sustaining structures for success. Remember to have your questions ready. There will be Q&A sessions after each of the speaking session. Please go ahead to alphaleadershipconference.net to pre-order audio and video sessions of the conference. You can go ahead and do that right now. You can also get books authored by the convener, Pastor Tola Odutola. Once again, at any point in time, if you experience technical difficulty with any of the platforms you're using, kindly switch over to any other platform that you have. We are streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also on Twitter. So please, if you experience any difficulty with any platform you're using, feel free to go on to the next platform. Thank you so much. We can't wait to see you this evening at 6 p.m. See you then.
Today, leadership is proven to be the most influential and critical element of businesses and organizations. At every level of an organization, strong leadership and influential skills are required to drive innovation, inspire performance, boost productivity, and collaborate within a diverse workforce. Effective leaders possess the necessary tools and skills to inspire and impact their teams, allowing the organization to run smoothly and competently. The Alpha Leadership Conference is an organization charged with promoting and teaching leadership skills to individuals at every level of an organization. Through conferences and seminars hosted in various cities around the world, such as the Great Leadership Conference here in Baltimore, speakers and industry experts share insights and teach on how to improve processes, develop systems, and lead the next generation. The Great Leadership Conference has featured prominent and world-renowned speakers such as Dr. Mensa Otabil, Pastor Paul Adefarasin, Pastor Agu Iruku, Dr. Tim Elmore, Mr. Sean Lovejoy, Pastor Cindy Trim, and Pastor Femi Atoyebi, amongst many others. The Alpha Leadership Conference is the vision of Pastor Tella Ojutella, its chairman and the senior pastor of Jesus House Baltimore. Pastor Tella consults, mentors, and coaches pastors. He speaks frequently at leadership conferences, at churches, with corporations, and at ministers' conferences and seminars, amongst many other leadership development opportunities. Pastor Tella has a passion to challenge people to pursue and maximize their God-given potential.
Too often, we drift from one action to another without thinking about the choices we have made. In fact, our direction seems normal that we don't even realize we have made a choice that has significant consequences. The book Line Crossers by Pastor Tola Odutola is a book that helps you find wisdom and courage you need to cross over the lines that challenges you. No matter your background, the message of this book will help you cross over your lines with strides of hope and confidence. To get a copy of this book, simply visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order and watch yourself cross over into your victory. Conference materials such as audio and video recordings of this conference can be purchased in the GLC website at www.greatleadership.net. A short survey will be available during the conference via a link that will be posted in the chat section of this live stream. Kindly complete this survey. It is easy to become complacent with life. The hurtful backgrounds, failed dreams, and scars from your past gives one excuses for having no expectations in life. However, in the book, I Am Better Than This, Pastor Tola Odutola inspires readers to relentlessly pursue a better future despite the challenges that will surely arise. To get a copy of this life-transforming book, kindly visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order.
Thank you for being a part of
Today, leadership is proven to be the most influential and critical element of businesses and organizations. At every level of an organization, strong leadership and influential skills are required to drive innovation, inspire performance, boost productivity, and collaborate within a diverse workforce. Effective leaders possess the necessary tools and skills to inspire and impact their teams, allowing the organization to run smoothly and competently. The Alpha Leadership Conference is an organization charged with promoting and teaching leadership skills to individuals at every level of an organization. Through conferences and seminars hosted in various cities around the world, such as the Great Leadership Conference here in Baltimore, speakers and industry experts share insights and teach on how to improve processes, develop systems, and lead the next generation. The Great Leadership Conference has featured prominent and world-renowned speakers such as Dr. Mensa Otabil, Pastor Paul Adefarasin, Pastor Agu Irukwu, Dr. Tim Elmore, Mr. Sean Lovejoy, Pastor Cindy Trim, and Pastor Femi Atoyebi, amongst many others. The Alpha Leadership Conference is the vision of Pastor Tola Odutala, its chairman and the senior pastor of Jesus House Baltimore. Pastor Tola consults, mentors, and coaches pastors. He speaks frequently at leadership conferences, at churches, with corporations, and at ministers' conferences and seminars, amongst many other leadership development opportunities. Pastor Tola has a passion to challenge people to pursue and maximize their God-given potential.
Too often, we drift from one action to another without thinking about the choices we have made. In fact, our direction seems normal that we don't even realize we have made a choice that has significant consequences. The book Line Crossers by Pastor Tola Odutola is a book that helps you find wisdom and courage you need to cross over the lines that challenges you. No matter your background, the message of this book will help you cross over your lines with strides of hope and confidence. To get a copy of this book, simply visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order and watch yourself cross over into your victory. Conference materials such as audio and video recordings of this conference can be purchased in the GLC website at www.greatleadership.net. A short survey will be available during the conference via a link that will be posted in the chat section of this live stream. Kindly complete this survey. It is easy to become complacent with life. The hurtful backgrounds, failed dreams, and scars from your past gives one excuses for having no expectations in life. However, in the book, I Am Better Than This, Pastor Tola Odutola inspires readers to relentlessly pursue a better future despite the challenges that will surely arise. To get a copy of this life-transforming book, kindly visit www.greatleadership.net to place your order.
Thank you for being a part of this year's conference.